Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I am... Oh, good. Perfect. Perfect. Let's see. I am coming to you live from a, actual bunker. Not really. Let me get my headphones on because, hold on just a second. 1 second. Okay. one second here. I am, whee. So, I'll explain in just a second what is going on here. Hopefully. Okay. We should have a guest joining us any minute. Let's change the format here. Okay, so I was going to do a legal news segment, and I am still, but I'm switching. If everything's going to look weird for a second while we get everything set up. Hold on. Where is my? Oh my gosh, what a disaster this is. We're doing it all live here, folks, so bear with me. I'm sure there's a way to do this where, like, you guys don't see me screwing around, but that's no fun, right? Where is my... Where is the... Hate everything. 1 second, Null. Let me make sure I've got my... Let me get my audio all set up. And unmute you. You're unmuted. Welcome to the show, Null.
Hi.
Hi, buddy. I'm boomering through getting the video pulled up because I wasn't sure if you were going to pop on or not. And
just minutes before you came on, I got off. So
awesome.
Perfect timing.
Well, good. Let me just get the my display capture just went away. Which I'm sure. Okay. Yeah. If you're watching this live, pay no attention to everything terrible going on.
A really good webcam, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got, this is mostly set up. So, hey, buddy, thanks for coming on. Okay, so guys out there in YouTube land, what I'm planning on doing a legal news show, but Null has been the focus of the first subject that I wanted to talk about, which is weaponizing the internet, and that's kind of wrapped up in DMCA and other stuff. Null, do you want to kind of give us a background on what's been going on?
I will give you a very quick rundown. Currently, there is a person of interest named Jonathan Yaniv, going by Jessica Yaniv. And this person is a Canadian resident living in British Columbia on the West Coast. And they are male. They have male genitalia. And they were refused service by a variety of women's only waxing salons because they do not do Brazilian waxes on men. And
see, because they didn't want to handle a giant hairy man part.
Not even that. I mean, presumably some of them would be reluctant to do that. But another issue is that the technicalities in waxing a scrotum are different than a Brazilian wax on a woman. So some salons, I mean, it's a very specialized thing. Not everybody can do it. Even if you can do Brazilians on women, they can't adequately wax a man without potentially causing harm, right? You got to be careful.
Yeah, so, definitely be careful.
Different skill set. It's not like, even if it is a bigotry thing, there is a valid excuse. Different skill set. Not my job. Now in Canada, gender is officially legally inseparable from sex. They are the exact same thing. So if you discriminate against a trans person, it is considered discrimination by sex. So he takes it up not by suing them. People inaccurately report that he's been suing these women for discrimination. He's actually been taking it to the Canadian Human Rights Council, trying to get them penalized for human rights violations for not waxing his balls. So
okay.
Piece of work. I think 16 different women have been brought up to the human rights violations tribunal and are dealing with that there. In the United States, he has been very, very viciously attacking any website, any person talking about him to protect his name. And the most obvious place where he's doing that is Twitter. He knew Biz, who was the co-founder of Twitter, not involved anymore, but there are pictures of him with that. And he has said that he has connections in Twitter. And not only are people like me being penalized for talking about him at all, because you can show that tweet, and I'm sure you will, that got me kicked off Twitter for 12 hours, and I was forced to delete it. But it's happening to many, many what they call gender critical feminists. So very notable people who are in their 40s and 50s, who are women's rights advocates, who are critical to the position of trans women and their wave of feminism. They believe that there's different issues and shit, and are, they believe that some people pose as transgenders to be sexual predators, and they believe that Univ is one. And these very serious people who do very serious work have been banned from Twitter for hateful conduct. And these people are just completely taken aback. Like these men in dresses are talking to their male friends at Twitter to suppress what is essentially a feminist movement. And they have formed an unholy alliance, a united front with the Kiwi Farms, which is very funny to me.
Yeah, that's that's a pretty weird kind of turn of events there. I'm pulling up the thing right now. This is the tweet that you sent out earlier, right? It's got the picture of Twitter's determination. 1 second.
There's 3 pictures, because not only has he gotten me banned from Twitter for half a day, he submitted a full DMCA to the Kiwi Farms, and I told him to sue me. And then he submitted a DMCA to YouTube, because I was going to, after Christmas, I didn't prepare a stream. So I'm like, well, I'll try something funny. It's Boxing Day. Let me unbox a random thread. And because on Christmas Day, he had DMCA'd me, I'm like, I'll make my Boxing Day thread about this guy, and I'll just read his thread, or my Boxing Day stream, I'll just read his thread. So I set up my little card. I set it for 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I throw up a thumbnail that has a picture of him, and he DMCA's the thumbnail. So as far as I know, I'm the only person in the history of YouTube who's gotten a DMCA request over a thumbnail for a stream that didn't even start. And I'm currently prohibited from live streaming because I have a full copyright strike, and they're reviewing my appeal. So it's complete fucking bullshit. I'm legit very, very angry at this person, because I swallow a lot of nonsense in my position, but this person is really just something special. And
yeah, okay, so he has okay, I've almost got these all pulled up while you're telling the story, and I'm gonna pull them up on stream, like over our faces in just a sec. Image. Apologize for being so bad at this, guys. But I want to make sure we've got everything. So the first one is your YouTube strike here that you tweeted out. And let me make this a little bit bigger so people can see. So here's the YouTube strike. The video has been taken down. And you said this one never happened, is the one you're talking about?
Yes, the YouTube strike is for a thumbnail on a stream that never actually occurred. He saw my notice for it on the Kiwi Farms at the top of the index page, and he DMCA'd it preemptively. So I'm still dealing with that. And as you can see at the corner, it says counter notification awaiting a review. So YouTube is going to manually review my counter notification. And my counter notification basically says this is a continuation of the DMCA he filed on the forum. And I've told him already, if he has an issue with the use of what he alleges to be his works, he should send his litigation to the address I've given him. So I'm still waiting for that. They've still not sent it to him. And then even after they send it to him, he's got 10 days to reply. So if they take a week to send it to him, it's going to be 17 days for that copyright strike over absolute nothing.
Right. Let me address the chat real quick, because Bagel Goose keeps trying to put a mask on. Bagel, since I'm using a window capture of Hangouts for this stream, you won't actually be able to do the mask function. I tried to turn it off, but Streamlabs is dumb. So nobody use the mask function. It won't actually work unless it's feeding directly from a webcam, and it's not. So I apologize. I will read those chats in just a second. Yeah, so that's crazy. One, a strike for a thumbnail is a bit extreme in the first place. I have known people to try and strike for picture ownership, and I've never seen YouTube actually do it. I know it has happened. Like, I know some people have gotten strikes for like a picture, but YouTube to me seems to DMCA much faster on things like actual video clips.
Yes, well, mostly that's content ID, where the YouTube has a fingerprint database of all video content that's copyrighted by mainstream like UMG and stuff like that.
Right.
And once the video is processed, it fingerprints the entire stream and checks it against the known database of works. With stuff like this by people who aren't UMG, they have to submit it manually. What's shocking to me is that it was processed manually so quickly. It happened in the 8 hours that the stream was scheduled. So, but of course, my counter notification's been sitting there for 3 days.
Right. Yeah. they're real quick to help you out once that initial DMCA goes down. They're very good at it. Very good at letting it sit there. Yeah, so I've put up your Twitter post, but for just a second, I'm going to move it to the back, and I just want to let people know kind of how, I wish there's a faster way to do this on, okay. How DMCA works on YouTube. We've discussed it before, but if you missed those streams, basically how DMCA works, it is not, I mean, it's the instituting of a legal action, I can't even find the right word. It's beginning of a legal action. However, it is not in and of itself a copyright action. A copyright claim is different from DMCA. DMCA is a way for YouTube to basically cover its own behind on copyrighted content, or any web page, right? You get the DMCAs on Kiwi Farms, and basically it is where someone says, I own this, please take it down. And then the owner of the page, YouTube, for example, would send a notification to the person saying they're taking it down, and then you can counter notify. And once that counter notification comes in, then the person who was initially taken down has the option to actually file suit and present papers. This is how YouTube does it. You can present lawsuit papers for your copyright infringement claim. And if you don't present them, typically they'll actually restore the content that was there. But as Null was saying, it's 10 to 14 days, and it's from the time of the counter notification being sent to the person. So you could actually be out quite a bit of money during this sort of lag time. If you're a daily streamer, or if you have like a scheduled stream which you expected to make money, which I assume you did have a stream planned. Yeah. I mean, you had this stream planned
yes.
against him, and then how often do you stream? I know you've been doing it more.
I stream once a week, and I usually stream for about an hour and a half to sometimes 3 hours. So anything above 3 hours is very uncommon. And during the streams, I usually make like, $40 an hour. It's actually a lot more than I expected. But the 10 days includes next Wednesday. And if they don't resolve it, or at least send it to him soon. It'll be the Wednesday after that it could conceivably terminate. And it's bullshit, because it's just some random guy. Conceivably, he could do this forever. He could just continually false DMCA me, and then the onus would be on me to sue him for like tortuous interference or something. And it's completely broken.
Right. It's a terrible system, because all of these systems were written with different, well, they're written by congressmen. And I do want to talk to you about that, because we had a very light disagreement, I think, over some proposed legislation from Louis Gohmert that I want to get to about Section 230. But the ultimate thing on DMCA, on Section 230, is that these laws were written with an entirely different internet in reality than what we have now, because of how fast it progresses, partly because of these systems, right? Like, these laws have allowed the internet to be what it is, which has been good. But as it shifts and changes, things have to probably change a little bit too. The DMCA process, it wasn't really contemplated to be weaponized, at least by Congress, because Congress is never at the forefront of anything, I think.
The issue with the DMCA is that it's so powerful and biased towards the corporations, because because back in the day, this kind of stuff was designed for internet service providers and like Usenet and early torrenting, and it was all very old and slow and manually processed. Nowadays, they still have this weapon, but it's so rapid moving, and Google is so afraid of it, because they know, with this tool, Google can be really screwed over by these massive media conglomerates, and they have to err on the side of caution constantly, which is why some nobody can file a DMCA and effectively censor somebody from talking about you just because they want to. And even if they're wrong, even if they've done it flagrantly in violation of the purpose of the tool, nothing happens to them. And any kind of recourse you'd seek against them would cost you more money than it would cost them to potentially pay out,
Right.
Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to
people
sue him for the $80 I didn't earn for that stream? It's completely, it's just awful.
Well, if you sue them in the U.S., you could actually win attorney's fees. But the question would be always, what's their ability to pay? I mean, any random individual on the internet likely doesn't have the $50K that you'd have to pay to your attorney to fight the case, right?
And he's Canadian, so it's like,
yeah,
that becomes even more instantly. That doubles the price of the litigation.
It does. It does. Although once you're availing yourself of the DMCA system, there is jurisdiction for the U.S. to bring a Canadian into court, because the DMCA process is a factor of American law, and they're not doing it like there's an international copyright treaty. I forget what it's called, but that basically somewhat standardizes copyright across almost every country on earth. They're almost all a part of it. It's very old law, but the DMCA specifically is an American artifact. And so when you make a DMCA request, you're willfully submitting to the jurisdiction. When you do it through YouTube, I would argue, although I'm not sure on this, because I don't know how this actually plays out. I don't know if anybody knows specifically how this plays out. But I would argue that if you do it through YouTube, you're submitting to through their terms of service.
When you go through the form, they make you consent to like the federal district of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, San Francisco, where the district court that's in San Francisco would be the one that you'd have to use, I believe, according to YouTube TOS. Although that's for a dispute with YouTube, so it would be it'd be a tangential jurisdictional argument, but I think it'd be effective.
No, they make you consent, because I've looked at the forms and stuff. You do have to tick a box that says I consent to the whatever court.
Oh, on the DMCA request?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Then that's at least part of the answer. But still, litigating in San Francisco is not cheap. I mean, that's an expensive city to litigate in the first place. Plus, you run into issues of anti-SLAPP, which could go either way in a case like that. So it really is ridiculous how the internet is, how these laws are being weaponized And like you said, they're designed to protect corporations. I mean, maybe they're not designed to protect corporations. They probably are. But the effect is they protect corporations who have the time and money to viciously pursue this stuff. And if Google were not to comply with a DMCA that involved like Sony Music Group or something, the litigation there would get very expensive, and both parties would have the ability to pay and would both be willing to litigate it. So it's kind of messy. So what do you think, man? How do we fix DMCA? Because in some respects, I think it should exist.
You make you make it so that it is a very, very sharp double-edged sword. DMCA should work. It should work pretty much along the lines that it does right now. But if you are knowingly abusing the system, it should be very easy to push it right back into your face.
Yeah, I think so too. I also think that Google and YouTube, and this is a product of the DMCA legislation itself, and this should be updated by Congress, they should speed up the process a little bit. I mean, especially a larger company like Google or YouTube. And that's kind of where I want to go on our discussion on 230.
Well, they should, again, specifically regarding that, they should have some kind of item to it to where companies like YouTube, middlemen, can feel safer if there's an ongoing dispute. Because like right now, YouTube just like, oh shit, we got a DMCA, we got to get rid of this, and we gotta hold this for review, we got to submit it forward, we have to take every precaution possible. It should be possible for middlemen in instances where it's a genuine dispute and not just like this person's re-uploaded Pirates of the Caribbean, you got to take it down. Right. You know, there should be some cushion, some safety for Google, which is an odd thing to advocate for.
Okay, how about a waiver system where, for example, you are going to upload a video, someone does the DMCA strike on your video because they say you've taken some of their content. Let's say YouTube submits the DMCA thing to you and just offers you, reply to this email or like click the box and do a digital signature. You are hereby waiving YouTube's liability in maintaining this thing. You're accepting the liability for keeping this content up when there's a genuine dispute. Something like that. Some sort of feature where YouTube or the middleman can absolve themselves of liability. Because really, like in my opinion, for the most part, these companies shouldn't be responsible for content curation, even like copyrighted content curation, because we're putting a burden on them that they have to either fulfill perfectly, or they're going to be inconsistent, and there's going to be, reputational damage to them over that inconsistency. Right?
Well, what I was thinking is you could have it so that, I have an AdSense account. Like if they want to say, would you bet $100 that you're in the right here? I'm like, hell yeah, I would. Right here, right now, $100 on the table, something like that. Or, I lost my train of thought. It was, sorry, I completely lost that. It was something about money and having to wager against it.
Well, that's an interesting idea too. The question is, I mean, what do you do? Like put up a PayPal deposit? I mean, they certainly could do that. Or if they put a cost on the DMCA strike, that might be.
I was thinking there should be a legal union. If you are a content creator on YouTube, you should be able to pay X amount of dollars per month to join a union. And if UMG screws with the union, any members of it, the union will represent it if they think that the person is in the right. And that way there is a formidable financial network to reprisal against anybody who is maliciously abusing the network. And what I think eventually would happen is the name of that union would be so well known by the companies. The moment they get a counter by that union, drop it and then never touch that channel again. I think that's what would happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting plan. Some sort of representation that would kind of take it on. I don't know. I don't know how you. the thing is, you'd need big players involved to get anybody to pay attention to it.
You would need people like PewDiePie, and PewDiePie would be the best, obviously, and like Keemstar, just anybody, like even smaller people who review video games and music and movies that are the most at risk for abuse from the DMCA. Having those people be represented would make it so uncomfortable for the copyright abusers that they would probably stop, because they're paying lawyers to do this constantly.
Right. Yeah, wish, you know, they could pay me to do it. I just sit around on YouTube and look for illegal content for quite a bit of money.
Well, no, it's not just illegal content. You gotta be a bully to everybody.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, and you've got to just start DMCAing. I think they actually, I think the big companies, well, at least in the past, they used bots to do it, but then they got slapped down by the Ninth Circuit pretty hard in Lens versus UMG. Which I'm going to have Birch on and talk about that at some point, because that's just a fascinating case where someone actually won against the big bully because the big bully just didn't do a fair use analysis at all. And they ended up having to pay.
The opinion at the end was something like, you have to consider fair use. Like they made that like case precedent where you have to consider fair use before you, and if you do it flagrantly without any consideration, you're at fault.
Yeah, and you pay legal fees. Yeah. And that was the whole issue of that case was they just flat out said, no, we have an algorithm. Anytime our content comes up, immediately flagged. No analysis is necessary because we own it. And I was reading an article the other day. It was about it was in a link from an article about PewDiePie, and it was, I think it also involved him because PewDiePie gets clicks for traditional media too. Yes. But it was basically. This is a lawyer saying that these game companies should be streamers should be happy that game companies don't just revoke their license to live stream the games.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Where it's like we should be thankful. We should be on our knees thanking Nintendo that they give us the privilege to talk about their games. And it's like, no,
right,
not in America. Maybe in Europe, not in America. We don't do that.
Yeah, and the thing with that is streaming is, to me, live streaming a game is, if you have any comment at all, it's transformative, right?
Not even that. I think on completely unedited gameplay with no commentary, just a guy playing the game, that is by definition transformative, because there's a human with a controller in their hands making the game play. The actual footage is the work of the person playing the game, as opposed to a movie, which is just a reel rolling. Right. And it has nothing to do with the person watching it. I mean, I'm very permissive with what I think is fair use.
I think so too, and I think we should be. I think we've kowtowed to companies like Disney, Sony, Universal Music Group, or whatever. Those companies have been so heavy-handed with copyright for so long that it's really influenced how we view it. But the way,
to their credit, though.
Oh, go ahead.
Disney, like, you're kind of encouraged to be brutal with copyright. Like Disney in particular, like they do not let up on copyright. Like if you are a 17-year-old girl doing birthday parties for children and you advertise that you'll dress up as Princess Elsa, they will cease and desist you for copyright. Yeah. And the reason why is because if you don't defend your copyright, it gives argument that you don't own it. And one of the things I'd like you to think on for me, because I have an opinion and I want to see if you agree with me.
Sure.
You are familiar with Sonichu, correct? Christian Weston Chandler's magnum opus.
Yep.
People in early days when he was, I'm going to be a big comic creator. I'm going to make Sonichu. It's going to sell $1 million and 1 million copies, and I'm going to be famous for comic book authoring. It's as good as anything else, right? And everybody's like, no, it's just Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog and mashed together. The two different intellectual properties. You can't just make a portmanteau character and say, this is my OC, do not steal, and have it work. But Sonichu is now 10 years old, and he's never gotten a cease and desist. Do you think that Sonichu is a transformative work of other intellectual properties that is now distinct from those intellectual properties?
Oh, I think definitely. I don't know how you could argue, especially with like the back lore of his alternate reality
history.
Yeah, there's no way you could confuse Sonichu with existing in the Pokemon universe or in the Sonic universe that have been created by their respective
even though
creators.
Technically he is a Pokemon, and even though technically he is a Sonic character, I mean, I think if you tried to make a game and included like a Pokedex or something, that would be iffy. But in terms of the character himself, like no, like the actual comics involve Sonichu like torturing people and stuff. Like if anything, everything that passes for Sonichu canon is parody. Like even if it's not its own thing, it's like it's unintentional parody, even though he's trying to make it like a homage to the actual IP. And I would say that Sonichu is 100% fair use, and so far to say it's a unique property that has
I think so too. I wouldn't call it derivative. And I go back, there's a quote from a justice, and I can't remember the case or the justice name, so I apologize to the lawyer gods for that. But there's a justice who's talking about fair use, and he said fair use is not just permissive in copyright law. Fair use is encouraged in copyright law. So the way that especially big content creators look at this is they think, oh well, this is fair use, so they get away with it, right? Like it's this defense that they have. But fair use is not like it is a defense in the sense that someone is saying that you're infringing their copyright, and you're saying no, this is fair use. But under copyright law, fair use is original work. Like it's not treated the same as derivative work or anything like that. So fair use is actually encouraged and specifically protected. It's not the shield you hide behind. It's the sword you wield, so to speak. Here's I'm such a nerd. My Kindle is nothing but law books. I took it up as an interest, and I just read through like old Yale textbooks and stuff on copyright law, because I figured I'm broke as shit. Nobody's ever going to protect me. If I get into trouble, I have to learn. I have to learn myself. And one of the things that stuck out to me was references to the copyright clause in the U.S. Constitution, which reads, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to the respective writings and discoveries. That is the basis of the copyright, patent, and trademark offices in the United States. Right.
And it's very unique. The author of my book pointed out that the clause contains rationale. Usually the Constitution just cut and dry. It's like, this is what it is. But sometimes they will elaborate on why something is going to be like the way it is. And it says to promote the progress of science and useful arts. So you have a patent because you want to encourage people to make stuff and feel secure in making stuff, like they're going to get their money back. You want people to make movies and be secure that they're going to get their money back for that movie. And that's why it's really important, the audience of a work, and you consider if it's transformative, because if it's not cutting into the audience of somebody's work, then it's not in any way infringing or discouraging people from progressing useful arts, because it's their own thing, right?
Right. Absolutely. And that's the distinction is that we need to make. Like, are you just taking something? Because copyright, I mean, literally was supposed to be, I make a book and I start selling it. You can't come along, print the same book of mine and start selling it as yours. Like that's what copyright was. And then it's kind of morphed and grown into like, well, you took a character from my book and that people, like, think it's mine.
You used a picture of me in a thumbnail for your live stream. Therefore, I own the entire live stream. Like, no, you don't. Come on now.
Yeah. And someone did use a picture of me in a thumbnail to a live stream. Or it wasn't a live stream, it's a video that I did not authorize, but that's how it goes.
That's fair use under critique or ridicule. I think ridicule is explicitly listed as a fair use provision.
I hope so. Let me read. There are a couple chats out here, and I like so out of sorts today that I forgot to like talk about all of the housekeeping stuff. But there are a couple. Anonymous masked you for $2. It says, within the law macaw bringing Rad Chad Legal Eagle on. No, Legal Eagle is not welcome on this channel. That guy is a shyster. I don't trust him at all. And then another one from Anonymous. This is Bagel Goose. He says, within the law macaw disappoints me once again. I'm sorry. Then Ben sent a super chat, says, I'm going to say the N word. Well, I don't think you should, I guess, but it's up to you, man. It's your name attached to it. And then YouTube is Gay says, DMCA, it's fun to misuse the DMCA. So yes, there are two ways to kind of interact with me and with Null. You can send a super chat through YouTube, or you can click on the link that says Justice Chat in the description, which will send through PayPal, and YouTube gets less money. Less money to YouTube, in my opinion, is a better thing. But you know, it's up to you, and I appreciate everything that you guys send to me. So recapping for people who have joined a little bit late, my guest right now is Null. Some level of management of Kiwi Farms, although we all know that managing member, yeah, because Mundane Matt owns the site, right? but yeah, so Null is a managing member of Kiwi Farms. If you've never been to the farms, maybe that's for you the best, but someday you should probably check it out. Although if you do, watch out, you're on every NSA watch list or whatever, and everyone will hate you automatically if you associate with Kiwi Farms at all. Because I hear all they do over there is just dox people and kill and eat children. It's like a Clinton affair or something. Like what?
Hillary Clinton's one of our members. We feed her the children. That's how we stay afloat in these trying times. She funds it. We're a part of the global initiative.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about the farms for anybody who maybe doesn't know about it? I am not on. Some people think I'm actually on Kiwi Farms. I am not.
Your buddies. You're gonna get shit again from that crazy lady.
Yeah, I think she might have learned that like it's not very effective. it's like a bad Pokemon exchange for her. Like I don't know. She hasn't been bothering me. I've been bothered. Oh, I was going to talk about, since we're on this whole weaponizing thing, I've been bothered by a completely different person. And I was going to talk to you about it.
Is it my special friend? Or is
No. This is comics related, but I had a lady on my show a while back. She was a quote unquote Comicsgate creator, self-identified, was all rah-rah for Comicsgate. She came on my show. Her name was Mindy Wheeler. And she owned a comic shop with her husband a while back. It went out of business because of various reasons that she came on and talked about. And then she was planning on launching a book, I think in February. And I had her on because she was a comic store owner. And I thought it would be nice to get kind of the perspective of a comic shop owner, because I had been talking with people about like issues with overshipping and the monopoly that Diamond has on the comics industry. Are you familiar with how comics work?
I am a massive nerd, but not in this way. I don't know anything about comics.
I think you might find this a little bit interesting, though. So Diamond is the distributor of comics, Marvel and DC Comics, Image Comics, IDW, all of the big name comic brands.
When you say distributor, do you just mean like logistics or like printing as well?
I think the big guys print themselves, ship to Diamond, and then Diamond ships to every local comic shop. But Diamond owns something like 98% of comic book distribution, and you cannot get a Marvel or DC comic at a store that was not shipped by Diamond, right? So these local comic shops have to deal with Diamond. They have to. There's no alternative for them to go to if they want Marvel or DC. And if you're a comic shop that's selling new comics and you're not selling from Marvel and DC. This
includes online, or do they use different things for online?
That I don't know. I would assume that Diamond does the shipping for Marvel and DC online as well, but I don't know. I know that they control the retail distribution chain. So if you want to order wholesale to your retail store, you go through Diamond, and that's your option.
And wasn't that big crowdfunding comic book also making their own distributor because the Diamond guy dropped them or something? I'm vaguely aware of this.
No, so they were going through Antarctic Press to print the comic. And Antarctic Press has a relationship with Diamond for the other comics that they print, so they would be able to distribute using the Antarctic Press imprint. So you have to have an imprint that has a relationship with Diamond, and then so Antarctic Press was going to publish and print the book, then since they already have shipping arrangements with Diamond, they would be able to distribute to local comic shops through Diamond. So that's how that works. But yeah, all of the crowdfunded comics that you see that are not being shipped to stores, they're all being mailed like either by the printer, like it's all arranged by the individual doing it. Like the Diversity in Comics guy, he's actually been hand mailing out one of his crowdfunded books. It took a while because you have to mail like 10,000 copies of a book, right?
Yeah, that would suck ass.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to have her on to talk about the Diamond stuff, and we had a fine interview. But in this interview, she mentioned that she and her husband briefly had a partner, a business partner, who they found out was skimming comics from the store. Okay.
What?
And that's all she said about it. All right. So then this guy contacts me and says, whoa, wait a minute. I was their business partner. I never skimmed comics from them. It's all a lie. And so I say, okay, why don't you come on my show and just, you can tell your side of the story. This lady allegedly lied about you. And so then I had the audacity to let this guy come on and defend his name on the same channel where it was besmirched, right? And since then, the Wheelers have decided to send a bunch of negative reviews to me on on Google and on Facebook. It's been
like for your business, like your
legal
business.
Yeah.
Wow. What?
But so this is like, and I'm not doing this like, guys, people have been very supportive of me. I'm not like under attack or anything. I find this all to be so weird. But it's this weaponizing of the internet, right? Like I do not get a bunch of legal business from my website, Google like review page. So I'm not concerned about it. That's not how I drive business in my legal professional sense. It's all word of mouth. I'm a small town attorney, guys. It would be hard to like actually influence the people who are hiring me because they're not reading a Google review. They're talking to their friend who I kept out of jail, right? Like that's how business works for me. And that's a better testimony.
Are you criminal?
Yeah, I do criminal defense. I also do business and entity formation, contract drafting. I do a little bit of everything as well because of the small town, but
yeah.
But I like doing criminal defense the most.
My aunt was a prosecuting attorney turned family law.
Oh, sure.
And we don't talk anymore because people went after her business. Sorry.
Yeah. And man, I would never. I hate family law so much.
She's good at it. She's good at that kind of stuff, and she knows everybody in town. She'll see people, and she knows every terrible thing that ever happened to their family because she was sitting on one side of the courtroom when it happened.
Yeah, yeah. That's one reason I don't like family law, because you get to see the dirty part of everybody's laundry, right? Like up close and personal. The other part I really don't like about it is what it does to kids. So I respect the heck out of people who can practice family law and not eat a bullet. But I've done a small number of family law cases. They were all highly successful, not because of me or any special thing that I did. It's mostly just because the cases were obvious, and I was just
you pick the easy ones. Is that what you're saying?
No, just the people who came to, because I only do family law for friends or relatives. That's it. I just really don't like. I can't practice it. I hate it too much. I also hate charging like either a man or a woman who's getting divorced, for example, like their income just got halved. And now I'm going to come in and ask them for like 10 grand to start a case. It's a hard thing for me to do. So, no, but the cases I've done have just been so clear cut and it's been good. The problem is that they couldn't get lawyers to do it prior to me because of either like, they just couldn't put up the money up front for it. And because I know them, I can work out better deals for them and stuff like that. But it's a messy business, man. I hate it. But yeah,
I can imagine. Like, if you want to see the good in everybody, it would probably be a really awful awful line of work to have.
Well, yeah, and the worst part is when you've got like an abused kid, for example, that you're trying to help out, and you can't get anybody to help you, and you just have to wait through the court process. Yeah. And you know that that kid is like going to bed scared because they don't know what the next day is.
Yeah, like I was friends with a woman who worked not as a legal professional. She ran a charity for sex trafficking victims, and there were very interesting legal loopholes that she had to work through. Like if somebody came to her and they were kids, she couldn't house them in any way. She had to like find a middleman who was on like a proper registry for temporary housing for abused kids. So she would wake up any hour of the day and find somebody willing to take a kid in any hour of the day, and then contact like legal professionals, people in the government who can help. And like that was her bread and butter. And it's like, I don't know, I couldn't do it. I couldn't answer calls about like rape kids in the middle of the night and try to swing something at any given second. Like that would just be too draining.
Yeah, it's horrifying. It really is. I mean, I had an abuse case, which was not sexual abuse, thank God, but it was a kid who was very comparable in age to one of my children, and had a parent who was, every time they would go over to that parent's house, they would come back with marks and bruises and cuts and scrapes. And yeah, and so for 3 years, you know, they live in a big county in Minnesota, and for 3 years they hired 3 different lawyers to try and get help. When I took the case, the kid had been recorded abused for like 6 years at the time. They had spent the last 3 years with different lawyers who couldn't get anything done. They couldn't get family services to help ever. And I will say it this way, and I hope it offends someone. It's because they were white that they could not get family services involved. You try and get family services to help out in like a middle to upper middle class white family in a big city, and you'll find trouble getting them to help. They build up their own prejudices about who does abuse. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. Then I was able to take over the case, and unfortunately some more obvious abuse occurred that had some interesting current media trigger points. I don't know how to like talk about this case without, because I can't disclose specifics, you know, but let's just say that the current media environment made this particular type of abuse at least get someone's attention. And that's what I was able to do. And we eventually got a restraining order. I asked
you in the Hangouts chat.
Oh, no, it wasn't anything about the kid. It was about the thing that the parent was doing. No, that's those are like showing up on the stream, by the way.
Are they?
Yeah, it's
you don't have your stream set up right then.
I don't have anything set up right. Yeah, I'm terrible at all of this. No, but okay, so I can say this. The dad was using an airsoft gun to hurt the child. Okay, what? So I was able to use not just to hurt, like to terrorize him, right? So I was able to use the airsoft gun because it's a gun, right? And buzz media to make enough of a stink with family services to get them to look at it. The airsoft gun was not really the big concern. This kid was getting physically hurt every time he saw the dad. So that was the problem. The airsoft gun was just a window to get us in the door with family services to finally, this kid had reported abuse from doctors, from school teachers, from grandparents, and family services just would not help ever. They investigated like one time and were like, well, it's he said, she said. You got a kid with puncture wounds. I mean, dear God, do anything. I hate family services, by the way. I think they're the worst organization on earth.
Are they just useless?
Yeah, they're useless when they need to be useful, and when they need to be useless, they're the most overbearing organization that there is. And and when they like take parents or kids away from parents, or lock them away at like a children's hospital for years or whatever, that stuff just burns me up. Not because they're like an anti-cancer parent, like I get that, right? But it's like there's that chick named Justine. She was like 14, went to children's hospital, and the children's hospital had a different medical opinion than her other doctor, and changed her medication stuff when her parents were like, wait a minute. Her other doctor's been treating this condition. They said, no, she doesn't have that condition, and you guys are abusive, and then kept her for like 3 years and wouldn't let the parents be there. But so I hate family services because of how they handle cases, and they have an impossible task, right? But the way they perform is abysmal. But yeah, so where were we going with this? Oh, I think we got on
your practice and some of your stories.
Oh yeah, so it was just because I had talked about the reviews or whatever, and then I mentioned that I do criminal defense, and So anyway, this is circling back. It's the weaponization of this stuff, like, because these people know that getting negative or lowering my Google reviews would presumably cause me harm. And for a lot of businesses, it actually would. And yet there is no effective way to fight false reviews on Google. Like, and these are easily verifiable because these people are so smart that they use like their real names and their real business names. So I can't represent them because they live in Mesa, Arizona. So I'm not licensed in Mesa, Arizona. So when they go on and say I give bad legal advice, for example, like I should have some recourse through Google to fight that and say, look, I can't give them legal advice. It would be illegal for me to do it.
I mean, isn't there an appeal for bad reviews on like on these programs?
On Google, you can report a review. But you can report it as like spam, inappropriate, or harassing content. You can't add any context to it. Like on Twitter, some of the reports you can add like.
There's not even like a field for. Wow, yeah, Google and Steam, which is the video game distribution online, they have a common philosophy, which is that everything should be automated by technology. There should be almost no human intervention in anything ever.
Right.
And it kind of cuts me both ways. Because on one hand, it's like, people suck. And there really shouldn't be any human intervention for anything. I think there should be a technical solution to everything. But then on the other hand, it's like this happens and it's like the robots suck as bad as the humans do. So that doesn't work. But if you have too much human intervention, you get Yaniv calling his buddies, his posse up in Twitter to take down some tweets. And it's like there's no happy medium. And that's why I always go to an extreme that's just like let people say whatever they want and shift through the nonsense. And I'm thinking what's going to happen is, because I mentioned this before, I don't know if I mentioned it to you or Dick Masterson or both of you, about how I think in the next 20 years, everybody is going to have awful things about them on the internet. And we're going to become conditioned to it. And we'll just be naturally more skeptical about everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And that's probably a good thing, ultimately. And that'll be I think the biggest place we'll see that, we're starting to now, is with politics, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking of the president that is born today and what he's gonna, like, how are you going to keep your kid sheltered enough to be president in 2040? Well, not 2040, that they'd be too young. But
I mentioned this with Dick Masterson. I said we're gonna have congresswomen in the next 5 to 20 years who have nudes online. It's just how it's going to be. And there's not anything you can do about it. That's the future. It's going to happen. You're going to have nudes of your congresspeople and you're not going to care because that's just how the internet works. And people are bad with privacy and people are assholes. And we're just going to be in a future where everybody has too much information out there. And we're going to become conditioned to it and just be like, unless this impacts their job, I don't care. And that's going to be the natural counter motion of this pendulum to, oh my God, they did something I don't like, so they have to be fired from their trash management job,
Right. And that's how it should be, right? Like the only thing that they should do that you don't like as their trash management person is like take your garbage can, just dump it out on your kid or something. Like that should be them getting fired, I guess. But yeah, if it's just
pointing out that Ocasio, she does have nudes. She took a picture of herself in her bathtub, and like her boobs are visible in the reflection of the spigot of the bathtub. So like the Matrix thing, where you can see the camera of the film crew in the doorknob of the Matrix, and that's like a really famous goof that happened.
Sure,
it's like that, and it's just like nobody cares, and that's great. I love that. I love that nobody gives a shit anymore. That's how it should be. Let's move on. We're done being offended at everything. We're going to be very, very liberal, but in a classical sense, where we just like, unless this somehow affects my concept of how they govern, like, just move on. What is an instance is, did you see that guy freaking out at the vape shop in Georgia?
No. If it's got vaping in it, though, I want to hear about it.
This guy, it's in I think it's in Atlanta, Georgia. This guy walks on, he's got his MAGA hat, he's got his Trump hoodie on. He walks in, he's like, yeah, I need that vape juice. And the guy is like this wimpy, dumpy looking ginger guy with like a gross ginger beard. And he's just like, get out of here, racist. You're wearing that racist clothes. I want you out. If you don't leave my shop right now, I'm going to call the police on you. And he's like, well, fine. You call the police. I'm recording this. This is funny. I want to show the world that the Exhale vape shop in Atlanta, Georgia, houses this mentally insane person who refuses service to Trump supporters. And he's screaming. He's like, get out of here. Get out of here. I'm calling the police. I'm not selling you anything. Capitalism sucks. And the guy's like just laughing at him, and he's screaming, and it's just fantastic. And that's the kind of thing that's like, okay, this guy is mentally unstable. Maybe he can't do his job correctly. That should affect somebody's performance.
Well, if he doesn't own the shop, then yeah, maybe he should go. I mean, that'd be how that works for me. Is
no, he didn't. He got fired. Actually, he was fired like an hour ago. They put out a thing saying they fired him.
Yeah, well, you'd have to, right? Like,
oh yeah, especially in Georgia. Like, come on, don't do that in Georgia.
Yeah, they fired him. Okay, yeah, the chat is also saying they fired him. I got a couple more chats real quick. The Orange Cow says, I can't follow your streams as much as I'd like to. What was your opinion on YouTuber law suing Patreon and PayPal? Okay, so you've heard about this for sure, right? Lior over at YouTuber Law has filed, or is filing.
He filed an FTC complaint, correct?
I don't know if he's actually filed it yet. He mentioned that he's going to. But on his webpage, it says that, filing an FTC complaint is usually done by a team of lawyers with staff, and he's doing it himself. And he's asking for, not specific amounts or anything, but he says anything you can do to help would be great. He's got a PayPal link. So I don't know if he's already filed it or not, but I assume he will be.
If I were him, I would set up something more strongly constructed than just sending money over PayPal.
Yeah, I would set up a GoFundMe for it with targets
with regards to how the money can be spent in a legal sense, because that's sketchy. Yeah,
it's that I'm sure Lior will do his homework on that.
Hopefully, but yeah, because I mean, that's what I was saying. I've been saying it, and that was the thing you wanted to talk about. Is like, I don't believe in censorship. It sucks that people can use reviews and stuff to screw people over. I think people are going to get used to that over time. The last thing I would want to do is have any kind of rule where the government says you can't ban this person from your platform. I think what should happen is that financial organizations and pseudo masquerading financial organizations like PayPal should instead be forced to conduct their business without bias.
Yeah, and so that's what if I understand correctly, and I have not watched his full video on it, and I don't know if he's elaborated. I heard him talk prior to mentioning the FTC complaint that he was basically looking at Patreon and PayPal as conducting what's called a group boycott against Subscribestar. Because we all know Sargon goes off of Patreon, Subscribestar takes Sargon, and then almost immediately PayPal comes out and says, no, Subscribestar, we don't fund you anymore. And then Subscribestar sends out like horrifically translated statement. Because where are they from? Are they?
I didn't look at that at all because I knew it was gonna. They're like, oh, we're gonna move over to this and we're gonna have our own Patreon, blackjack and hookers. I'm like, 48 hours. I give it 48 hours before they get shit on by everything. And
yeah, it was
right.
It was like, yeah, I think it was even fast. It was pretty fast. It might have been 12 hours. but anyway, so he's basically saying it's a group boycott where people who are not, typically when you've got an antitrust action, you have to have people in the same industry, and PayPal and Patreon are not. So they don't have, between PayPal and Patreon, market control to keep out a competitor in a specific market. However, Patreon and PayPal actually might be close to being legally a monopoly anyway, because they do like 60+% of all credit card processing.
You mean MasterCard and Visa card?
No, PayPal does like 60% of all credit card transaction processing. Kidding me. No, it's massive.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
And they're thieves. I'm just going to say this. Elon Musk, you can sue me if you want. Patreon steals money from small businesses. It makes so much money stealing from small businesses that they can afford to shoot junk into space. That's how much money this theft pseudo banking enterprise makes from the backs of people trying to earn a living. I hate PayPal. I hate PayPal. I think I hate PayPal more than I hate MasterCard and Visa card, because PayPal is just so much worse, and it pretends not to be what it is. And
MasterCard has been really bad prior to the internet. They were really terrible to American Express and Discover. They got slapped down over and over for antitrust violations, and they, gosh, it's crazy the level of control that MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal and Stripe have. Because like PayPal does like 80% or 60% or whatever. Stripe does another 19%, I think. So between them, they're pushing 80% of the market between those two credit card processors.
You know what? It's fine. I don't care. Like that would be okay. But it's like you get a choice. You either get to allow competition, and the reason why people can't compete is because if you want to make a payment processor, you have to get licensing in every single state and every single country, and it costs like tens of millions of dollars to start up a competition to these businesses, and nobody wants to get into it because then you're left with a company that you have to compete with MasterCard and Visa card with, and nobody wants to do that. So
you have to abide by the rules of the cartel, and it really is a cartel because they're. For example, like if you get into banking, you have to have access to the ACH system, right? For overnight payment processing between banks.
Oh yeah. So even if you run your own banking system, they can cut you off and you can't wire transfer. Isn't that great?
The ACH system is controlled by a trust, and the board of trustees is all the big names that you would expect. It's board members appointed by big members of the cartel. Visa, so MasterCard, like, Bank of America.
You can run your monopoly, and I'm sure the government's happy because I'm sure they pay their taxes. You know, that's how they double dip. They pay taxes on whatever, and then they corporate income tax from the credit card processors come in, and everybody's happy with it in government. But it's like you can either be a monopoly or you can be biased. That's your choices. And right now they're both. And it's like, it's not fair. They should have been cut in half and cut into quarters and cut into eighths and divided up time and time again, like decades ago. And now, and people are like, you know, libertarians will be like, well, you can't credit the big daddy government to fix this. Like big daddy government created this issue to begin with.
Right.
And if you are a libertarian and if you're really against government intervention, you should be on Bitcoin already. You should already be on Bitcoin.
And the one thing I want to say real quickly is actually Congress can regulate the banks. It's in the Constitution. Congress has plenary authority to mint and regulate the currency. And so if you don't think that Congress, like even as a libertarian, that's absolutely a constitutional mandate. Not just like the fact that we have private banks is because Congress allows private banks. But the Constitution would allow the Congress to set up a national bank. Now, many of us don't want that, because I don't want the government to have any idea what transactions I'm doing, and I'm not doing anything illegal, but I just don't want them involved in that at all. But
the general mindset is whenever you talk about government knowing something, it's just like, screw them. They don't need to know.
Right, exactly. The less they know, the better. They just, it's not their business. But in the Constitution, setting up a national bank is a congressional enumerated power, which is why we have the Federal Reserve System in the first place. And what they did was then they just basically contracted out, and the contract is just a profit. It's not like the government is paying banks to exist on normal days, but they contracted out the retail banking arm and let the private market build that. But they absolutely have the authority to step in on someone like PayPal, Stripe, MasterCard, Visa. If you're messing with currency, you're handling government minted money, you're actually using a license from the government. If we want to get into like how copyright and stuff works, government has issued a license to use their fiat currency. So they do stand to be regulated in some way. I try to keep government out as much as possible, but they're pushing bounds by discriminating against specific people, and we have evidence of this because Patreon is stupid and told everybody that MasterCard pressured them on Jihad Watch.
Oh, Patreon's smart. I'm gonna take a devil's advocate approach. They don't want to censor people. They want to have a big, healthy business where everybody gets to have their crazy little enterprises get crowdfunded, and they hate the fact that they can't run their business because these big bullies above them say that they can't.
You can. That's
my devil's advocate.
I think that's a valid devil's advocate, but until they start partnering up with some smaller people and making it happen, or offering a Bitcoin solution or something, we need to, you know, if anybody's set to do it, Patreon is set to do it, and they're not, because they're getting comfortable with who they are too. In my opinion.
Time to wake up, Josh. Oh, sorry. I said I had to go get my phone. The alarm was going off.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me get back to this chat. My opinion on YouTuber law suing Patreon and PayPal. So he's filing an FTC complaint. I wish him the best. I don't have much hope for it. A group boycott action in antitrust against Patreon and PayPal is going to be really hard to do anything about. I don't know that he'll have standing. His Patreon wasn't affected in any noticeable way. He dropped his Patreon. It was not huge. It was like $150 a month. I don't know that he hung around long enough. I can show damages from mine. I've got a page of people leaving this month all saying it's specifically because of Patreon's actions with Subscribestar and stuff like that. I don't know if Leor has that. If he wants my information to support his case, I'm 100% happy to give him whatever he wants. I will support it in any way. I think going at the antitrust route against him would be, I don't think it's going to work, but I think it's a good start. So
I think it's going to cause them to ease off, at least for a little while, because what's going to happen, like there's a woman, and I forgot her name, but she was on PBS, and she has like a master's degree or even a doctorate in like sociology, with a thesis written on social quarantine and how the internet can be used to take people who are hateful and with special tools put them in a box where they can't effectively communicate their message.
Right.
And like, I mean, to me, like, she's this big fat bitch and she's talking about this, and I'm just saying, like, pure concentrated evil. Like, how do you say these words with a straight face and think that you're the good guy? And like, I don't even think these people think they are the good guy. They think that the ends justify the means or something. And one day we'll have free speech once all wrong think is eliminated. But it was just pure congealed evil to me listening to her. And the thing is that her tactic would work. Her tactic would work just fine. I think that if you could effectively remove things like my presence on YouTube and my presence on Twitter, and you could do that with everybody who was out of line, you would actually have a very effective quarantine because the Kiwi farms would just be like a weirdo hangout and nobody would want to join it. And you have places like 8chan that nobody wants to join because the people who are on it are not well perceived by mainstream audiences, right?
Right.
But they're so good at censoring right now that it's impossible to financially support your work anymore. And if it was somehow possible to maintain, like I have effectively built my own concentration camp, and if I could afford to run it, I probably would be a lot more quiet. But they're so good at making it impossible to financially support your own concentration camp that people are breaking out of it now. They're off the plantation. And I think that's a mistake. And what's going to happen is they're going to ease off. They're going to let people, finance their stuff again. And they're going to focus more on the quarantining.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, I've been, in a way, I've been quarantined by Patreon since my channel started. My Patreon is listed as adult content, and I can't get them to remove it, which is weird because I don't do nudes. So maybe I should start because it's already listed that way. But so I don't know. I can't get them to change it from adult content, even though there is none. And that effectively removes me from a lot of like compilers and lists, for example. It makes it harder to find my Patreon without a direct link. There are all sorts of interesting ways that they can do that. And I mean, we've seen them do it to people like Alex Jones, the Ralph Retort, of course. You've got there are others who've been it's not like they're taking their ability to speak away. It's just that they're removing it from every major avenue that speech is communicated today. And that's it's terrifying that that's how they'll do it, is because as long as they're not actively silencing you, you've got a bunch of people on the left and you've got a bunch of libertarians still on the right who say, no, they're a private company. They can do what they want type thing. But, yeah, I don't know, man. You are saying that Bitcoin is a solution to all this, and so I kind of want to transition into talking about that. And since I want to transition, YouTube can't demonetize the stream because once you announce that you want to transition, you have transitioned, right? Is that how it works?
Say it again.
No, I'm just saying. I was just making a joke about being trans.
Oh, if I have to transition, maybe one day I'll have to.
No, I'm saying that I want to transition into talking about Bitcoin.
I thought you were. Sorry, I'm been awake for quite some time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So, okay, so let's okay, real quick. I'm gonna hammer through these chats and then let's talk about Bitcoin a little bit because. I don't have the faith that you do in Bitcoin, and it's probably because I don't understand it well enough. I'm hoping you can help alleviate some of my concerns on it. So Johnny Drake says money, yay. Thank you, Johnny Drake. Yay to money, definitely. Iron Martyr says Josh is a perfect expression of the free market dealing with degeneracy, disregard taxes, hail Kiwis. So hail Kiwis who have showed up. Landon Mackinjames says Keon and Nick walk into a bar. Keon asks, how are you so employed? Nick calls him a dick whistle and pulls out his lollyporn katana. Top 10 anime battles. Okay. And then Plum Logan says, is Fed money actually licensed or is it private money borrowed by the government and therefore released from constitutional law? No, the all currency is minted and regulated by constitutional mandate. Congress has gone ahead and given that power to the partly to the executive and partly to the Fed through specific laws. I don't know what acts they are specifically, but Congress has the power to regulate and mint currency, and Congress has the power to create a national bank. Those are part of what it was considered the unnecessary role of government when the Constitution was written. So it is not money borrowed. It's not private money borrowed by the government. Fiat currency is minted. Your private money is literally the product of your labors. So if you make a chair, that's your private money. If you talk on the internet, your private money is only worth what someone thinks your opinion is worth, for example. So that's and really it's only worth what someone thinks your chair is worth too. But yeah, so I hope that helps answer that.
That's true. I mean, I think that's true, and I think Bitcoin is very unstable, and it has proven itself to be very unstable. But I think as far as a tool to get money from person A to person B, it'll continue to be extremely effective for the foreseeable future. And I don't know. I would refuse to make any prediction over the value of any cryptocurrency at all, because I would look dumb. Any prediction I make will be 100% wrong.
Well, can you predict it to tank horribly then, so everybody can make their money back?
No, because the thing is, like, if I say okay, every time I make a prediction, I am 100% wrong, and I want Bitcoin to be very successful. Like, I don't even have a lot of it. Like, if it 100 times in value right now, that'd be great. I still wouldn't be rich. I would have $20,000. Like,
right.
Even if that miracle happens, I wouldn't be rich overnight. But I want it to succeed because it absolutely has to succeed. Because once Bitcoin or any crypto, not just Bitcoin, any crypto becomes stable and successful and widely accepted to the tone that MasterCard and Visa card are accepted, is the day that those private institutions and the cartel starts very carefully reconsidering their lot in life, and if they need to adapt and be more accepting of people.
Sure.
Because now they have competition, and I think that's the only way they'll ever have competition is if something like that succeeds.
Now, let me counterpoint that. And you can give me your opinion on my counterpoint. That's fine. My counterpoint is that MasterCard, for example, owns the patent to change, or the technology to change, or owns a patent. I shouldn't say the patent. For the technology to change blockchain currencies into fiat currency. And now I know that that doesn't mean anything for, like, if I want to send you Bitcoin, we can do a private my wallet to your wallet transaction to send Bitcoin, right? Like, that's how that works. It's like me handing you a dollar bill, effectively.
Yeah, effectively. It's like you handing a dollar bill over and 100 notary agents recording it at once,
right?
Automatically. That's what it's like. Okay,
so here's what worries me though, and where I run into questions about this technology. Or not questions about the technology, questions about how our country will evolve in the use of this technology. So if MasterCard owns the patent to convert Bitcoin into, or any other blockchain currency into a fiat currency, then what I think is going to happen is, because they have such a stranglehold on payment processing at, like, the retail level, your little, when you go to a grocery store, for example, that little terminal that exists there, MasterCard owns that, or Visa owns that already, or Discover.
Or Stripe owns that, or Clover owns that. Somebody owns that. You don't own it. You don't get to own your terminal.
So if you've got MasterCard or any of these other companies who have a way to turn crypto into fiat currency, and they already control the overwhelming distribution of the money payment system, then what we've got is we'll have the system already be compromised by the people most ready to deliver the service.
Way, in the sense that a lot of like Coinbase is the big one that does exchanges for cash into crypto, and they're compromised entirely. I was banned from Coinbase. Go figure. And I don't even know how. I don't even know how my special friend found my Coinbase account. But really,
I didn't know you could be banned from Coinbase.
You can be if he reported me for like sex trafficking or something preposterous, and they just didn't want any part of it, and that was the end of that.
Like, with the way that guy handles you, you might as well just do all of the bad stuff that he says you do.
No, I'm fine just being a weirdo as it stands.
But so how do we overcome? Because I get it. Point-to-point transactions are possible, but I think, a company like Patreon, for example, if they were to start taking Bitcoin, they would probably use an existing processor's transaction service to accept Bitcoin and convert it to fiat currency.
Yes. That's the slavery. It's very widely talked about. I'll tell you how I do it. I have a bank account, and they have a way. They have like their own thing. Like there's Venmo and Zelle. There's lots of small competitors to PayPal at the moment.
Sure.
And basically, somebody, there's a regulatory thing that's just private. It's like a form. It's like eBay. It doesn't actually handle money for you. It doesn't actually it's like peer-to-peer vetting for people. And basically there's a listing saying I'm buying and selling at this price, at this exchange rate. And you contact them, and they usually use Western Union or something like that. And you set it up, you put your money into escrow through the local Bitcoin system, and then it goes through. And there's human moderators that will check and see the transactions. And I've never had a bad experience with it. Somebody says they won $100 or X amount of Bitcoin, and they're going to pay me through Zelle. To the payment processors, it's peer-to-peer. They have no idea. Like I could have bought the guy a beer, and he's just paying back his tab. They have no clue what it is. And the escrow service handles that independently. And it's essentially anonymous that way. Obviously, if I were unpersoned, I would not have my bank account, and I wouldn't have Zelle or Venmo or anything like that. But I would still have Western Union. And essentially, it would become an endless whack-a-mole chase trying to eliminate these peer-to-peer payments, which it already happens. You have people in very poor countries. I mean, the widest adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is in poor countries. You go to Africa, everybody knows what a Bitcoin is. There's actually a comic by a guy called Ugo Jesse, and his comics are all in pidgin. They're all very terribly drawn, but I love them for their charming qualities. And
anything in pidgin is charming.
And he's talking about how women are a secondary goal. You have to focus on yourself first, right? So he's trying to give like a pep talk to Nigerian kids who are obsessed with sex, and he's just like, focus on yourself. And he uses the expression "nipple no be Bitcoin," and that's him saying that sex is not money. But his expression is "nipple no be Bitcoin" because to Nigerians, Bitcoin is the currency you want. You don't want no Nigerian dollars. Give me diamonds, give me gold, give me Bitcoin, and nipple no be Bitcoin. So I don't take nipple. And I love that. And I think that if the primary adoption is going to be poorer countries, and there's sort of a precedent set with that with China. China does not use credit cards. And if you use credit cards in China or cash in China, people snub you because it's like you're like a grandma signing a check at the grocery store.
Oh my God, every time I go, just kill me.
So in China, they use phone scanning. You basically give a QR code, you scan it with your WePay, and the money is transferred between that private system, which is like China's PayPal. And it's very advanced. It's very nice. Even the stores use it. Even the dollar, you go buy some General Tso's chicken from a street food vendor, and they're going to use WePay, and you just scan the code for the payment. And it's like that. And it double stepped. China was way behind, and they got industrialized in the 90s, and then it's starting to look at what was 1900s industrialization in the 2000s, and they go, well, we're not going to use credit cards, we're not going to use cash anymore, we're going to go straight to smartphones and scanning codes and stuff. And they take a double step. Well, if Africa ever catches up, they're going to go straight to cryptocurrency, and government money isn't going to be worth anything. And then once you have a consumer base like that throughout poorer countries, it'll slowly make its way to first world countries. And I predict by like 2040, 2050, it's going to be the thing. It's going to be like credit cards are today.
Okay, so ease my fear then about government stepping in and finding a way to regulate crypto. Because I was reading an article today, and I don't want to pull it up all the way on stream, but maybe I can get it real quick. Just to kind of reference the specific thing I was reading, because here we go. It's I'll just read you, because this is how this works in my opinion. Here's the headline: How Mexican cartels use Chinese crypto brokers to launder drug money. Right? So this is This is the concern. And law enforcement agencies in the U.S. have expressed worries that Chinese crypto channels are increasingly being used to launder money by Mexican drug cartels and other transnational organized crime groups. So they're talking about this, and they have this whole article about how it's being used to exceed the Chinese restriction on moving $50,000 outside of China. More than 50,000. These agencies don't know how to deal with it. It's a big problem. And then at the very end, here's the last line. Globally, the money laundering turnover is estimated to reach $2 trillion US, and the use of cryptocurrencies is cleaning illicit cash is tiny compared to other channels. But they have an entire article about how dangerous crypto is and what it's going to do, and how the intelligence communities.
It's a threat. It's a threat to them and the status quo. Of course, they're going to smear it as something that's unstable, something that's only used by criminals. They do the same thing with Tor. Tor is extremely important for freedom of speech.
Right.
But when you talk about Tor, it's like, oh, only pedophiles and drug dealers use Tor. Like, no, a lot of people use Tor to stay safe, especially with investigative journalism, where publishing a document can get you beheaded. There's valid reasons for it. There's many, I would say there's more validity to using cryptocurrency than there is to using Tor, because it's just money. And the reason why people use it for money laundering is because it is so convenient and so safe and so anonymous. So I mean, the character assassination attack is only going to work in the first world countries. It's not going to work in Nigeria, because from a practical standpoint, it's better to have it. And it's like, who cares if people are laundering money? It's not my problem. As long as I can buy food with it, I'm happy.
Well, and ultimately, people are laundering money. Whether or not they're doing it through Bitcoin, they're already doing it very effectively, more effectively, or at a higher volume, I'll say, than crypto. And the article does mention that the transparency of most coin transactions mitigates its usefulness in laundering. Yet there they are still talking about how it's this dangerous tool. My question, though, is because America, for example, and England and all of the Western countries in general are just a collection of boomers. Like, ultimately, when we get to government, it's a collection of people who cannot and will not understand.
They'll all be dead soon, fingers crossed. And the next generation, they're going to love the internet. They're going to love freedom of speech. They're going to love Bitcoin. I'm not going to bet money that that's going to be the case, but just join hands in prayer with me that all these old farts will die peacefully in their sweet sleep, and we can move on from this. Because even Trump, God bless him, his whole thing with net neutrality is just like, come on. Come on, we need some government protection against Cox Communications and Spectrum. For the love of God, don't take this.
Hey, don't besmirch the good name of Spectrum. This gigabit internet powered stream brought to you by Spectrum.
Spectrum. I've done a chargeback with Spectrum. They've been charging me for the 6 months that I've been in Russia. I'm not getting no internet here from Spectrum. You better pay me back. That's like $400 for half a year's worth of business internet connection.
Yeah, they're getting wrecked by the government right now. They have to pay out a bunch of money because they promised speeds that they weren't delivering. Well, so much so that when I moved into a new place, and they did offer the Spectrum gigabit service here, and they're very clear that it's actually only 960 meg, not actually a real gig, but it has to be installed by a licensed technician with a special tool to make sure that they're actually delivering the speed that they want. And I think it's largely because they got spanked in New York for not delivering.
That's a place to get spanked. Hey, that's where my chargeback was. They better give me my money.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell.
Someone asked what I'm drinking. I got a bottle of Glenlivet 12 for Christmas, so that's what I am drinking right now. It's good. Very good stuff.
I am drinking. I'm sipping. I'm not drinking. I'm sipping on Kozatska Rada, which is a local vodka, and it's actually quite smooth. It's very cheap, but it's smooth.
Good vodka, man. I went to Hawaii, and they have an organic vodka distillery, and it was yeah,
some vegan vodka.
No, it's they use only organic sugarcane, and we went out to the plantation and the distillery. It was really cool. It's Ocean Ocean Organic Vodka. It was a really nice tour and everything. And the vodka's good. It has a little bit too much taste to it to be like a really good vodka, but it is it's smooth. We'll put it that way.
I'll tell you my secret alcohol appreciation. I brought this home to my snobby aunt, the rich lady who does family law, and her husband dismissed it as being a drink for black people, if you could imagine that. And it was Hennessy cognac, which I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
And I don't care if the rappers be talking about the top shelf Henny. Okay, it's really good. It's really good. It's a pleasant drink.
You got to bring him Hennessy Pure White. That's what you got to bring him. Because that's
is that the black bottle?
No, it's clear. Hold on. I'll get you. I'll show you one. I actually just finished this bottle a couple days ago. It's really quite good. It's Hennessy Pure White. It's an amber colored brandy, or cognac, but yeah, it's just.
Again?
Oh yeah, it's right here. See?
Oh, that's a beautiful label.
Yeah. Well, it's empty now, but no, if he thinks, if he thinks that only black people drink the cognac, you got to bring him the pure white cognac.
The pure white. If it's all white, it's all right.
Here's your white supremacy. No. But yeah, so my concern is, so hypothetically speaking, I know the next generation is going to be great, and somehow they're not going to all be a bunch of Hank Johnsons who literally think Guam will capsize if we land Marines on it or whatever.
What? Is that an actual statement?
Oh, dude, yeah. So Hank Johnson is like a 7,000-year-old senator. I think he's a Democrat.
He's still alive. I thought this was like a dumb thing that somebody said in the 70s.
No, he's still alive. He said this long ago for the Strokes to have hopefully killed him, but no, he's made it through. They're interviewing like a high-ranking naval officer in Congress, and they're questioning him about some stuff. And they were talking about landing some more Marines on Guam, like 8,000 Marines or something, which Guam, correct me if I'm wrong, that's American Samoa, that's U.S. soil, and moving Marines there isn't a big deal.
It is a territory, yes. It is. I think Guam is northeast of Japan. Don't make fun of me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's up there, and that's why we keep it, because those crafty Japanese attacked Hawaii. So afterwards, we took Guam, and we're like, this is ours now, and we're going to keep an eye on you.
Yeah, it's very, very far west in the Pacific. I think it's the farthest west U.S. territory currently. But yeah, so Hank Johnson says, and he later tried to walk this back and say that he was joking, but I mean, if you listen to the clip, I promise you, I'll DM it to you later, but I promise you that guy was not joking. He says, look, I'm concerned that if we land that many soldiers on Guam, that it would capsize. And the Navy guy, right, who's like got respect for your governing body drilled into his very soul, like, I don't think we have foreseen that as a problem, sir. It's a good one, but yeah. So no, so you have faith that the next generation of government will eventually, like, the dumbness will die off, at least in regards to the internet.
You know why?
Yeah.
Everybody in this generation, everybody my age is looking at President Trump and thinking, I can be motherfucking president. I can join Congress. I can be a senator. I can be anything I goddamn want. You know, the whole joke about you can be anything you want as a kid, where it's just like everybody grew up to be a loser, working at McDonald's, working in corporate, being unhappy. Now they're actually thinking it. Like, if I wanted to run for Congress, I bet you I could win. I bet you I could win. Trump has inspired a whole generation of kids to do whatever they want.
I really do think that Trump made big strides for what you were talking about earlier, where eventually everything negative, everybody will have negative stuff about them out there, because lo and behold, everybody's human and does something that is dumb. at some point in their life. And sometimes that dumb thing can be really bad, and other times it can be minimal. Doesn't really matter. And it doesn't mean anything about the person until you try and define someone by it, right? Like, even if someone robs a bank because they're 20 years old and they just want more money, so they rob a bank. When they're 40, it doesn't mean they're going to rob a bank again. And actually, probably unlikely at that point. But like, recidivism among bank robberies over 20 years, I think, is pretty low. But bank robbery in general is like going out of style. Now you just steal people's. Bank robbery is a thing
that, like, they just cap you. That's like a life sentence if you rob a bank.
Yeah, and also, like, you're only going to get, if you don't know this, guys, most banks can't actually give you the money. Like, they don't have any at the teller window. And so if you're not doing like a hostage bank takeover, you're not getting more than maybe $6 grand. I mean, unless you pick the perfect time of the perfect day where they've just gotten restocked, it's not going to, it's not going to happen.
Getting like a heavy stick and bashing in some windows and taking laptops in plain sight. Like, that's what you got to do. Don't rob a bank. You're gonna get shot. They have guards there that will shoot you. It's not worth it.
Well, and the teller will give you like the money in the drawer, but they don't keep that much money in the drawer. That's the whole point. At like Wells Fargo, for example, they have a machine where any withdrawal over like $500, they go to basically their own version of an ATM that's secure and dispenses the money. Like, you're not going to.
Like casinos, they have lock boxes for all the tips and stuff. Like, that's not out. You have to, like, it would be, you know what? That's probably, if you're talking about places to rob, I would say robbing a big casino is probably just under trying to rob like an armory for the U.S. government. Like, I think in terms of wanting to die, having a death wish, you'd probably get shot at a casino much faster than you would at like a bank, because, you know, the bank, they don't get paid enough to care. But the casino,
Hemoglobin says rob the trucks. And I'll tell you, like, as far as actually access to money, it's the trucks, Loomis Fargo, Brinks, the security companies. Although I will say you'll get shot real quick if you try and rob the truck.
You gotta have some casualties for that, and then it's a death penalty if you get caught. It's just it really up the ante for that one. That's what's the name? Is it? It's not Heist. It's an old movie that Payday is based off of, and it's about bank robbers. Heat.
Oh yeah, Heat with Val Kilmer.
That's a fantastic movie. The robbery scenes in that movie are perfect. I got Heat playing in my head right now because we're talking about robbing banks.
No, the best
armored trucks.
The best bank robbery movie is Quick Change.
I had not seen that, but if it's better than Heat, it has to be really good.
It's Bill Murray, Gina Davis, and Randy Quaid.
I don't know anything about actors. Is it like a serious movie or a comedy? Because
it's a comedy, but it's the plan is great, and they execute a perfect bank robbery, but then they get lost on the way to the airport. Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. But yeah, okay, so you have faith in these the next generation, but my question is, so let's say you're wrong on the faith aspect of this. Is crypto inoculated against government regulation? Like, because I hear how secure and everything it is. I know that it's transparent. Let's say in a nightmare Orwellian scenario, a government decides to regulate crypto completely. Like, they just say they're going to come up with some way to prevent you from using it. Can they do it?
No. Because that's already happened. It's called China, and crypto is still traded just fine in China. The only issue is that you can't have Chinese exchanges. And like people speculate that's part of the reason why crypto is kind of haggard right now, because of the Chinese ban. They said they've been thinking about banning it. They say we are going to ban it like next month, like 100 times. They finally went through with it, and I would say nothing's changed.
Okay, so you're saying the worst that a government could do then is make crypto illegal, as is, you know, like weed is illegal. But people still do it. So they can make crypto illegal, but it'd still be possible to do.
The thing is, let's say that they instituted a death penalty. If we catch you trading, possessing, moving, advocating for crypto in any way, we will kill you. The only way that could be enforced is if people met, like a drug bust, like a drug exchange where people met in person and at the hotspot to trade it into cash or something. In terms of managing it on the internet, as long as you're using like a proxy or something, or some way to keep it safe, like using Tor, and you can use Tor to trade crypto, peer-to-peer transfers will still be fine, and there will still be miners operating outside of the US. The only way that crypto could ever seriously be banned is if it was a global shutdown. But even then, it's like people would all that it takes to mine is a GPU. Gamers using torrents, or not torrents, but Tor and VPNs, they could still mine. It would require many other things to go to break down before it's possible. You're talking about an authoritarian government. You're talking about worldwide cohesion against it. You're talking about a censored internet. You're talking about a lot of things that would be necessary before it's even conceivable to make an effective ban on crypto.
Okay, but here's the counterpoint and problem, and help me out with this, is that they don't need to do that though. Because let's say our society doesn't ever progress and we're stuck in this like third wave feminism hellhole that we're in right now, where the perpetually offended market. So that persists for a while. So all they have to do though is reduce the popular use of it enough to where they can just effectively silence the voices the way they do now, right? Like, because
I would say the majority of people who use crypto just use it as a way to exchange for different fiats, though. It's not necessarily purchasing power. Purchasing power will be important in making Bitcoin more accepted. Right, but it's not necessarily something that makes it popular as it is.
But I'm talking about, they throw Alex Jones off the internet. PayPal and Stripe refuse to process any of his transactions. So Alex Jones wants to go to crypto. Like that doesn't affect anybody else other than people who want to support Alex Jones, for example. But if crypto is illegal, for the sake of argument, some weird thing where they say crypto's illegal, like Alex Jones can't publicly accept it. And then it makes the mechanism for doing it weird and risky beyond the popular level. And that's the scary thing, is like
the thing is, at that point, they're effectively saying that you can't send money to Alex Jones. So, I mean, in that nightmare scenario, I mean, it's just as bad with or without crypto. The crypto is just an accessory to this argument, because you're still arguing for a nightmare scenario. No, crypto is not the panacea to everything. It's the panacea to a credit duopoly. It will not independently, like Bitcoin will not rise from the cyber world and behead our government for being tyrannical. That's why the Second Amendment's there, so that we can add the 30th Amendment to the Constitution saying that crypto shall not be restricted by the government.
Yeah, and I do think we need some major action in general on finance, because the fact that we've got these companies weaponizing access to currency, like that's the most terrifying thing I can think of, is that at some point, I mean, it's not there today, but it's close, they'll be able to prevent you from shopping at a grocery store and buying food like that.
Oh yeah.
If we go on this current trajectory.
Oh, yeah. That's how, I mean, again, China, they have the Sesame Score thing, and China is not shy about how it does stuff. It's not like where it pretends that what it's doing has a different purpose. Like in the West, you have to be careful. You have to pussyfoot around if you're trying to be malicious with the program. In China, it's like, our Sesame Score will gauge your financial responsibility. It will gauge your social media presence. It will gauge what if you towed the party line. It'll gauge if you're patriotic, and it will give you a credit rating based on socioeconomic factors and not just how financially responsible you are. So that if you are, if you're talking about free Tibet, or Taiwan is an independent state, or the Kuomintang army, not Kuomintang, yeah, Kuomintang government is the official government of China and should be the mainland China party. Like, they might they might come to a point where they stop arresting people for saying that kind of stuff, and instead they stigmatize you on your score. They make it like your Yelp score. They look you up, and you're dating somebody looks you up, and you've got 1 star because you're a free Tibet person.
Right.
And they know if they get with you, their score is going to get lower, and then they're not going to be able to get a loan. They're not going to be able to leave. Like, China requires a passport to move in between provinces, so they're not going to be able to go see their family reliably, perhaps, if they live in a different province. Like, it'll cause all sorts of problems to be associated with that person because their Sesame score is so low. And yeah, potentially it's like maybe fancy restaurants will like, if fancy restaurants are processing transactions, serving food to unmentionables who think that Taiwan's its own country, like, that would be awful. That would look awful in their score. So they got to turn you away for buying your shark fin soup at the fancy Chinese restaurant,
Okay, while we're on the topic of free Tibet, we need a giant global organization where I can nominate people to self-immolate for freeing Tibet, because there's so many people that I think need to free Tibet through self-immolation that we need some organization to help organize this.
I would propose, because she's very aged, I would propose that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsberg should protest the occupation of Tibet. Not that I'm saying that Tibet's occupied by China, it's a rightful Chinese clay, but I'm saying that if there were to be a protest regarding the occupation of Tibet, whether or not Tibet is occupied, Ruth Bader Ginsberg should self-immolate.
Now, she's already dead. She's not aged. And have those like joke logs that burn different colors? Can you imagine what color like she would put off with all of the whatever preservatives and stuff are in that haggard corpse?
It would be pitch black and sparkling with green and purple fireworks as it forms a skull and crossbones.
Yeah, that's
my prediction.
She's horrifying. Okay, I've got a chat from Bagel Goose. He asks, "Hey Null, I got a furry saying furries are good people. What are the best sources to prove otherwise?"
I did my stream about the Cure of the Wolf guy.
Yeah,
hear about that?
Just go to the Kiwi Farms YouTube channel and check out the Cure of the Wolf stream. Also, did I watch that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I watched part of Medicars. I don't know if I watched yours.
Okay, mine was the finale, I think, for that, because the big guy, you've got such a nice, gentle audience.
No, it's okay. They're prepared at this time of night. They're prepared. And are you going to talk about the Cuban dude who got?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Cuban guy was the worst offender, and it's safe to say, for sexual gratification, he physically annihilated very young puppies. And took pictures of it and shared it with glee to people who happily received them and encouraged him to do more.
You got those pictures, didn't you? Like, people were sending you all sorts of stuff.
And one guy, he was in Cuba. Cuba has no animal protection rights whatsoever. And I'm like, guys, you're trying to get him. I appreciate it. I don't think we're going to find him. I don't think we're going to find his name. I don't think we're going to find where he lives. And even if we did, the government doesn't have any laws. So, it is what it is. It sucks, but this is just how it is. It's Cuba. Some guy who did business in Cuba got his business associates to contact various animal rights organizations within the countries who networked with people with organizations that did animal adoptions. And they had a picture of who they suspected to be the guy who was doing this, and asked the animal adoption organizations in the area where they thought he lived if they recognized it. And sure enough, one of the adoptee places, the one place he only went one time, they all recognized him because he's been adopting animals for a long time. But the one place that he only went to one time took pictures of the animals with the adoptees. And sure enough, we had a picture of the guy we thought to be him holding an animal that we had seen die. And we sent it to him. We said, this is the guy. This is what he did. We're 100% sure it's him. And they reported that the government got him. And we don't know what he's charged with. We don't know where he's at. We don't know what's happening to him. He's just gone. Cuba got him. The Castros got him.
Tell you where have you ever seen Born in East LA?
No, I've not.
Okay, it's a Cheech Marin movie, but yeah, he like goes to Tijuana and loses his passport or whatever, and he wakes up in a Mexican prison, like hanging upside down. Like, you don't want to. of the places you don't want to end up, Latin American prisons, especially Latin American totalitarian state prisons, not where you want to be, I think.
Like, yeah, that's probably the worst. Like, you'd probably be better off in the fucking DPRK than Cuba, to be honest. Like, it's a coin flip, because I think what somebody said with in predictions of this, because they were Latin American, they knew a little bit about Cuba, is that what they probably did is they got him under a vague anti-sodomy law from the Fidel Castro homophobia era.
Yeah.
And they probably just charged him for sodomy. And the thing with sodomy is that it's treated as a mental illness. So he's probably forcibly detained in a Cuban mental asylum on a Thorazine dope regimen. That's what they think happened. And I think that's probably the best bet.
I wouldn't want to be there either. Because I imagine they're similar to like prison. I imagine those, like a Cuban mental health facility, to be similar to like an American 1940s mental health facility, which are terrifying places to be.
Yeah,
but maybe I'm wrong though.
No, that's what it's going to be, because it would be bad. And the thing is, like, I'm such a softie. Like, it makes me feel bad in like an abstract sense. Like, in my head, like, I get no pleasure from people being in pain. You know what I mean? Like, I have, even with really terrible people, it's just like, I look at it pragmatically, where it's like, yeah, he's done awful stuff. I don't think he can be rehabilitated. I think he should just shoot him. I think that should be the punishment, and then you move on. Like, I don't believe that people should be made to suffer. And a lot of people are happy that there is a very, very good chance that he's suffering inordinate amounts of excruciating agony every day. And I don't know. I don't get my jollies off of that.
I'm just glad I'm not there. That's me. Okay.
That's a good opinion.
My dude Landon Mackinjames says, as an autism, guest's top 3 favorite anime. So, what are your favorite anime?
Somebody asked me this before. I'm pretty sure.
Probably the same guy.
I've only watched a couple anime that were mostly slice of life and one horror show. So I would probably say Watamote and Higurashi. And there was one about a couple of sisters that was suggested to me, and I only liked the first season of that.
The only anime I watch now are it's actually a YouTuber named Mo Lowry, who's a black guy who like does reviews of the fights that happen, and God, they're funny. That's it. That's my anime exposure currently. Hoosier Highway says Null's a punk for not deleting Frog Boy's docs, jerk. So there you go.
I don't know. I did see that, and I thought about it for a second. I don't know who Frog Boy is. I'm sorry. I don't delete docs in general unless it's bad information.
Interestingly, doxing not typically illegal.
No.
People seem to have, like, socially unacceptable, maybe. But illegal, it's really hard for a dox to be illegal under current U.S. law, and it should stay that way, frankly.
Technically, I think it's only illegal if they are a federally protected person, and that's like judges and law officers. I think that's it.
And I don't even know if that would count. I know it would be... the way it would be illegal is if you were doing it to intimidate someone. That's and that would be like a specific intent.
It's not, right. It's not doxing. The crime is actually the intent of the harassment.
Right. Exactly.
Or extortion. Like the information itself. I mean, you can technically, people don't know this. They think that doxing is legal for whatever reason. But what people, even on my site, don't know is you can technically post social security numbers. And I think I delete those just because I don't want to deal with it. I don't think there's any reason to post a social security number, but from what I understand, it's just a number.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to comment on that one because I don't know for sure, but I do know stuff like address information, phone numbers, and guys, you probably shouldn't do this. Like in general, like really analyze why you're doing something, but like
not illegal to dox a minor either, as far as I know.
And yeah, I don't think minors are specifically protected. I mean, unless they're specifically protected. And
Yes.
you might want to research that. Like there may be some special protection for a particular person who's like a vulnerable adult or whatever, that might change, again, not doxing, but it might change the act of doxing into an illegal act.
I mean, people try to cite code at me. I read it. If people cite code at me, I'll read it. And if somebody's doxed who legally can't be in the state of Florida or the federal government, I have to respect Florida because my blood. But
yeah.
Outside of that, I don't really care. There's some anti-cyberbullying laws up in Michigan. It's like I could not give less of a shit about what Michigan has to say.
Well, the main thing to think about, if you do think doxing should be illegal, just on a philosophical level, let's do that real quick.
Before we get into that, somebody mentioned that Benji is on the run or in jail. Benji is the former owner of HN Baphomet, which was a doxing hellboard. And I've spoken to him, and I remember the incident where he doxed the judge, and that's funny to me. Like, it's not funny that I'm happy that he's on the run. It's just like I know who that is. I can't believe that he actually got fucked over like that.
So is he's on the run for because he doxed a federal judge.
Somebody's saying that if you dox certain military members' information, it's a national security issue. Man, if I get a court order from some military tribunal, the shit's coming down. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah,
I think Bad Dog is out, but if Mattis or whoever his sit-in wants me to take something down, don't worry, I'll take it down.
I was going to say something, and then I lost it.
It was about the philosophical standpoint, doxing.
The problem with like making doxing illegal is that people post addresses of people all the time in for various reasons that are not nefarious at all. And
the white papers do.
Right. The idea that you would make an act of making private or thought to be private information illegal to share would get really overly broad, and it would sweep up too much protected sharing of information under like commercial speech or even political speech. And the people that they want to protect generally, like even federal judges, I'd be surprised if the doxing of the federal judge has caused him to be illegal or is illegal because it was a federal judge whose address or whatever was revealed. Now, I think there's probably something more that's going on in that circumstance, but I don't know enough about it to know. But I'd be very surprised because public officials tend to be very public. Like in Minnesota, you can find any state employee salary information, teachers, prison guards, and it has a lot of information about that person available, and that's because they're
I mean, you can't keep where you live a secret. Like, if you're really well known, people are going to like, hey, that guy's the president. He lives right next door to me. And then people know your address. And it's like, you can't prevent people from saying that. That's preposterous.
Only Maddox would try. Okay, so next.
I haven't heard about Maddox in forever. Has anything happened?
The judge who was hearing the case just retired like 2 days ago. And so another judge will have to come in for the sanctions hearing. Who knows?
Oh, geez.
I mean, who knows how long that's going to be.
He couldn't have waited. What an asshole.
Yeah, well, the weird thing is Asterios mentioned that they had gotten a list of potential hearing dates for the sanctions in November, and then nothing became of that. And I don't know. He puts out a lot of content, and I don't have time to follow it personally. So I don't know if he's ever talked about what became of those dates. But that's a little strange to have dates presented and not have one either pick one or have one assigned, because they probably knew this judge's retirement was coming. Not Asterios, but the court admin probably knew and would probably try and resolve this thing. But now it'll go to a new judge who will take over the case. That could just shift the timeline back months. I mean, so I don't think we'll hear anything else about it for a while. Okay, next is a scanner Daphne says, this is how the government attacks crypto. And that was sent at the time I was reading the article about crypto being used for quote unquote money laundering. Super Iron Bob says, cryptocurrencies depend on the computational difficulty of math problems. How can they survive the focus of a government entity that is known to be better at that kind of math than the public? So I guess that's a risk, that mining would just be usurped by the government with extreme resources and computing power. Is that an issue?
That is okay. That is a reasonable fear. That's actually something that is a reasonable fear. In the world of cryptography, I don't know if it's just Bitcoin or everything. I'm pretty sure there are some services that are not going to be vulnerable to this, but they are in different ways. It's called the 51% exploit. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I have no idea.
The 51. Okay, so the way that validation occurs in Bitcoin is that miners typically vote for if a transaction is valid or not, and they do this by submitting proof of work that they're mining, and that's what the delay is in the transaction. You get put into a poll, and then the miners vote if your transaction is valid or not based on the signature of the message, or like the transaction, if you've signed off on it correctly, if it's not forged, if you actually have the money is another thing. You have to have the entire ledger of the blockchain in order to validate if a wallet has the money, by getting all money in, money out, and computing that. So there's a lot of validation, and it's distributed, and the voting is based on the amount of work done by the GPU. So
Sure.
if you have 10,000 small laptop GPUs validating a transaction, but then you have one supercomputer quantum processor that is more powerful than all those put together, and then some, saying that no, it's not valid, then because of the proof of work system, the transaction is rejected. So theoretically, you could have it so that a government, the CIA, NSA, DOD, ABC, they put together a supercomputer that's more powerful than all the GPUs in the entire world. And it starts saying MasterCard and Visa card have all the Bitcoin. And the 51% would say that's it, because the supercomputer says it, and the proof of work system says that is who has all the money now. And that is the 51% exploit. It is a critical design. It's like the little exhaust pipe on the Death Star. Like that's what could conceivably happen. Now, the problem is that I don't know if that ever could happen. Conceivably, it could happen. There is some concern, valid concern, that the Chinese government is already doing that, because China actually does more mining than all the other countries put together. So there is concern there that the Chinese government would do that. But then there are alternative currencies that use something called proof of stake. So what happens with that is, for instance, there's something called, forgot the name of it, but what they do is you take 1,000 of that coin and you lock it, and then you sign off on something to validate a server that is a master node, is what it's called. So you put your stake into the master node, and then while holding that stake, it begins to validate transactions. And because it's not a proof of work, it operates very efficiently. And you can have, on an old computer, you can have many master nodes very quickly, just looking at the ledger to see if the person has the money, instead of doing the busy work that is the proof of work system. So you take, in that system, the 51% is much harder to do, because you can't just jump onto the network with your quantum computer and bust it. You have to have already 51% of the master nodes.
Now, when you're putting your stake into the master node, do you have to get consent from the master node? That's my real question. That's a joke. That's a rape joke. A rape joke's okay on my stream? Because you're putting your stake into something. Did I boomer that? I apologize.
No, you asked a logical question, and I think the answer is yes, to be honest.
Yeah, but it was supposed to be a non-logical rape joke. That's all.
It makes sense. They have to say that you have the money to lock to begin with. You have to sign off on the locking to make your master node. And if you have two master nodes using the same signature, it doesn't count as two master nodes. You can only use one. So yes, the answer is yes. The master nodes validate the other master nodes. Okay,
so you have to have consent. So you can't. Yes. You could get Me Too'd by a master node. The Tillip. And I will say, my one of my relatives worked for Cray, and like the funny thing is, like, supercomputers are all GPU. like a comical amount of GPUs running and cranking these things. So I do wonder how much influence they could have. And I also wonder at what point it would be profitable. Right now, no point at all. But at some point, there's a value of Bitcoin or some other crypto where it would be profitable to take your like $40 million Cray computer and turn that into a mining operation. And that's great.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's going to get crazy. Like it's like the Cambrian explosion in crypto right now. You had Bitcoin took off. Then you had all the ICOs and you had the altcoins, and they went crazy. And now people are looking at masternodes, thinking of masternodes like investing in property, and they're going to get crazy. There's so many different masternode coins out there. It is literally, the Cambrian explosion is a perfect way to put it, because you have all these developing things that are kind of different from each other, and some are weaker and some are stronger, and they're getting destroyed and eaten and broken into and hacked and devoured, and everything's unstable and things are crazy, and it's a lot of fun. And by the end of it, you're going to have dinosaurs.
like literal Jurassic Park dinosaurs you're talking about?
Yeah, and then you're gonna have a movie in 50 million years from now about the Bitcoins, and it's gonna have the do.
Spared no expense. Tillip, my show producer and the guy who does my thumbnails and all the art for the channel, says big fan Josh. So he's a big fan of yours.
Oh, geez. I'm getting like I mentioned this on the Ralph Retort, where because of the thing with got that guy, I forgot his name because I've been up for so long, Jonathan Yaniv. Because of that, a lot of like feminists are fans of the forum now. And I had like 50, 40-year-old women talking about how I'd be a great grandson or something. It's like, where am I getting people liking me all of a sudden?
Are you terrified that the Kiwi farms could like be turned into a terrifying crop? Like you get a bunch of like crazy, angry
we already have turfs and stuff. Like the site has handled so many waves of migrations and different people adding different things to the pot. Like I think we can take on anything. You know, it's going to weed out people who aren't really there for the right reasons.
Yeah, but what if it was like a concerted effort by all the bad furries to come in and dox all the good furries and false flag them into?
Oh, they already do that. They fight each other all the time. And it's okay. If you're a furry, fair game. I don't care.
Okay. Opus Day says, Nick, doing any type of transaction that crosses currencies, FX, presents currency risk. If you're paid in crypto, cash out immediately or buy a forward rate agreement if possible.
Don't cash out immediately. What you should do is cash out whatever. What I like to do is I like to cash out whatever I need and hold the rest, and I diversify a portion of that into other coins. I haven't been able to do that because I don't have any money anymore. I'm broke.
Well, just treat your crypto as a speculative investment, which means that you should have, like, if you talk to a regular financial advisor, they'll say this: you should have 2 months, I think minimum 2 to 6 months of savings in cash available, 2 months of income to 6 months of income in savings in cash. Then you should have like 10% of your portfolio after that should be a cash savings account. And then everything beyond that
has a good plan. She says, have no debt ever besides your home. Don't have a car payment either. Have a home only in debt. Once you're out of debt, have $1,000 in cash, like cash money, like a wad of hundreds that you have in your house that you can grab at any time.
Or crumpled up ones. We don't discriminate against certain professions here.
Or then you need 6 months worth of expenses, not income, expenses.
Sure.
Saved up in a bank account. And then everything else needs to go into investment. Every penny that you can save needs to go into your investment account, and like 15% of that should be speculative. Though I would do everything in crypto. I don't care about the stock market. The stock market sucks.
Well, and that's because we're not licensed to give financial advice, and none of what we say should be taken as financial advice. You should go to a financial advisor who will know their client
I'm literally an insane person, and I tell you to buy borscht. Make every meal borscht. That's my financial advice. It's great. It's fantastic.
Someone did ask if that was Dave Ramsey speaking. Never. No, Dave Ramsey would not give the same advice I would. Even he would not support the advice that I gave, because I would talk about any sort of speculative investment, and Ramsey would say no. And I would definitely advocate having some level of debt that is reasonable.
You got to gamble. It's the spice of life.
Exactly.
Throw the bones.
It's really easy for Dave Ramsey, who makes millions of dollars a year in cash income, to tell people,
and from his business, yeah,
to tell people not to have credit of any kind. But for the average person, like, it's just going to happen. So Mula Viking says, for hosting a very interesting guy. Thank you, Mula Viking, for that. That's apparently as a thanks for hosting you. I do think you're a very interesting guy, by the way.
Thank you. I think I know that guy, because I think he super chats in his Norwegian kroner as well during my live stream. So
yeah, so that was in Norwegian kroner, which it was in OK, which now I know that's Norwegian kroner.
Yeah, some people thought it was like North dollars, like North Korea. Like, no, nobody in North Korea is super chatting you.
If you super chat me from North Korea, I will mail you food. Please don't starve. Maddie P on the road says, better to self-immolate or travel to Greenland? That's a preference question. I would say traveling to Greenland would be a little more peaceful, probably.
Self-immolating is the most hardcore way to go out. I have mad respect for anybody who sets themselves on fire to die. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
I can never in a million years.
Maybe it's actually the best way to go. Like, your body just shuts it all down. No. You just get to see nice colors.
No. You suffer agonizing death if you set yourself on fire.
I was just trying to offer encouragement for my list of people who need to free Tibet.
Not even as a joke, not even as like just the thing to say. Agonizing, painful way to die. Don't do it unless you are genuinely a radical. You are insane about your cause. Then go for it. But in terms of like actual suicide, just go to Greenland.
So Ruth Bader Ginsberg, should she go to Greenland? Should she self-immolate, or should she climb in a hydraulic press that goes very slow?
Well, as I said, I don't derive enjoyment from the suffering of others, but I would.
But she might. She does. So she would derive enjoyment from her own suffering, right?
I wish that she may die peacefully, surrounded by her loved ones in her sleep.
Yeah, I wish she would do that at some point far in the future. I just wish she'd retire tomorrow. That's what I wish would happen to her.
That's fair.
Yeah,
we can delay the peaceful passing if you just
get the fuck out. Yeah, she can keep up the necromancy and the like bathing in infant blood or whatever she does to somehow stay alive. All she wants. I just want her to retire tomorrow. You know, I don't know what her beauty secrets are, but they've got to be something, because she's looking good, girl. I'm just kidding.
If you ask Alex Jones, it's child fetus vampirism, probably.
Yeah. I'm not actually past thinking that at this point. Someone sent me a link of an interview with her from September. This is 3 or 4 months ago or whatever. And they were asking her about Kavanaugh's confirmation. And actually what she said, I'm pretty sure I translated. It took like 8 minutes for her to say whatever she was going to say. And I think
the imagine working with her on these Supreme Court judgments. It must be living hell for those other judges who have their minds put together.
I don't think she does anything. I would honestly say it's her clerks who do every bit of work on it. But
that's horrifying, because now we've got these unelected dipshit law graduates doing Supreme Court justice work. Go retire. This is dangerous for our society.
Yeah, it really it's terrifying. And she rendered, okay, so the Trump immigration decision where Trump wanted to basically eliminate some of the asylum applications based on an initial determination that they were lying about their asylee request, right? So if you don't know how this works, you cross into the United States, you apply for asylum, you get an initial interview with an ICE agent who tries to determine if your asylum request is valid or not. Something like 80% of asylum requests pass this initial test. and then you go on to your immigration court to determine with some higher vetting. But they do an initial weed out to say, okay, these people are definitely lying and they need to go back and their asylum request is completely bogus, or maybe they didn't even fill out the form where they talk about what persecution they're facing. But because it's a very low barrier, like 80% of people pass. And even after Trump initiated the rule change, like 83% of people passed. It went up. But they challenged the rule change.
It probably discouraged people from applying, so only more valid applicants applied. Maybe that's the rationale. I
mean, maybe I don't know. But so this went through the courts, went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they overruled Trump on this, which is the first thing on immigration that they've overruled him on, to my knowledge. Maybe there's something else, but they did overrule him. Because Roberts sided with the quote-unquote liberal justices. Ginsburg issued her decision from her hospital bed after surgery while medicated. And that, to me, is terrifying. Like,
oh, yeah. And people on Twitter were like, she's so strong. She persisted. Hashtag she persisted. And she's the woman we don't deserve, but we need. And it's like, she's like a zombie. She's like a zombie, and unelected clerks are running her busy work to do stuff. It's like, it's this horrifying. It's like when John McCain, after getting treated for brain cancer, gets rolled in his wheelchair to vote against Trump. It's like, just die, you spiteful motherfucker.
Listen, friends, I'm gonna save healthcare. with this healthcare plan, I could have lifted my arms above my shoulders. Okay.
I have a friend who genuinely believes that glioblastoma is an act of God.
John McCain would have made a terrible Nazi. I'm just saying, because he wouldn't have been able to do the salute very well. It would have been so low. Yeah, but Ginsburg, in this interview, they basically ask about the differences in confirmation between when she was confirmed and Kavanaugh. And I'm pretty sure that her answer, I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure her answer was that what happened to Kavanaugh is actually wrong. Because it didn't used to be this like partisan attack tool, and it shouldn't be. And she was castigating the Republicans, I think, for putting up a controversial justice in the first place. Although I don't think Kavanaugh is that controversial, in all honesty.
No, he's controversial because he supports the Patriot Act. He's a terrible justice for that.
Yeah,
I wish we could have talked about that, but instead we got to talk about his penis. I don't care about his penis. I care about the Patriot Act.
Well, you know who did care about his penis? Whoever he waved it at that college party. So yeah, and his Fourth Amendment stances are terrible. Or I shouldn't say that his stances are terrible. His opinions on Fourth Amendment stuff, including the Patriot Act and data collection that's been going on through the government, are very worrying, we'll say. You never know how someone's going to rule when they have the power to decide and they're not deciding under another rule set. But they're definitely worrying. And yeah, all we got was Roe versus Wade and then a bunch of Me Too garbage. And I think she was also castigating the Democrats for how they conducted that questioning. And so I think I liked her answer. The problem is I don't actually know, because it was honestly like, okay, have you seen The Princess Bride?
I have.
Okay, so yeah, you know when Billy Crystal or whatever, he like does the bellows to get the air into his lungs, and then he pushes it out and he says true love or whatever, like he's dead. That's what it was like listening to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's like someone had to force the wind out of her body to make her talk. It took forever to make the point. Yeah. God, it was embarrassing. Like just retire, just go away.
The thing is with McCain and Ginsburg, like their condition deteriorated rapidly after Trump got in, and I think it's like that saying by Gandhi, like spite or hate is like swallowing poison and hoping for the other person to die. Like I think they're literally killing themselves with their contempt of Trump.
Yeah, I think so too, because you see this in anybody. It's not just Trump. It's been happening for a long time, but Trump has brought it out, I think, in full force. that when you spend so much time with like anger on any issue, it doesn't have to be politics, but when you constantly go back to that anger, you can see people deteriorate in real time. And it's terrifying because they can't, like, and for whatever reason, politics does this to people where they can't just make peace with what is. And they feel like, I think it's the 24-hour news cycle is partly to blame, because I think that people are, are constantly bombarded with political news. And so then they just will sit there and brood on it, is my opinion on it. Maybe I'm wrong, but you can see how it eats away at someone if they just sit there and live in that kind of. Yeah. It's trouble.
It's especially noticeable with those two in particular. Like, I don't think Ginsburg's going to live till the election. I don't think it's going to happen.
What are the odds that she gets literally Weekend at Bernie's?
They prop her up as a dead body.
They prop her up with a marionette and like a very good ventriloquist. Actually, wouldn't even have to be a good ventriloquist, because they could just talk really slow and it'd be just fine.
She's probably going to die of an infection from all the operations she's had. She's too old to fight off infection now.
What if they're putting baby organs inside of her to grow and keep her alive for another?
I heard clickbait. It was from like a rag magazine, but they said something like Dick Cheney receives third heart transplant. And I believe that shit. That shit sounded so real to me. Like, yeah, it would make sense that he got a heart transplant at 91. And that was his third heart. Like, yeah, of course. I mean, he's elite. He can get whatever body parts he could be Frankenstein. He loses his arm, they'd go to the prison and find somebody willing to give him an arm. Dick Cheney would be rolling around in his wheelchair with like a black guy's right arm or something. And it's like, of course, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, it looked like some horrific Frankenstein monster. That'd be great. We need to do that.
That'd be funny. I would. I mean, if we got to that point. Yeah, if we got to that point where we had like a judge that had like a black arm, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, or like some monstrous like Lithuanian arm that's really good at arm wrestling.
legs that are different heights, so he hobbles a little bit as he walks.
But they each have different purposes. Like, one leg he takes from Mirko Krokop, so it's like just a super strong kicking leg. But the other leg he takes from Usain Bolt, so he can run really fast, like half the time, I guess, because it's only one.
Stan TM says Ginsburg organs are just fetuses. That's like proper nightmare. I'm just imagining somebody like her pulling off like her robe, and you can just see like all the babies crawling inside of her or something. That's like proper nightmare fuel. Somebody should write a book about that, like a short story about a person whose insides are just babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy Christmas, everybody, by the way.
Yeah. So if you have a bunch of babies, like, are they in control then? That'd be terrifying.
No.
It's just what if the babies took over?
Her various organs are just like cobbled together fetuses that are somehow functioning as those body parts.
It's just a ball of stem cells.
Yeah, like more developed than that. They're like reverting from like half developed to back to kidneys and stuff. Like that's my mental image.
That's terrifying. Thank you. Okay, so next, Bagel Goose. This is in response to the furry thing. It says animal control is the place to go. Yes. As far as turning in furries, is animal control the place to go?
That is the place to be.
There you go. There you go. The Orange Cow says, if you feed a woman to death, are you legally culpable? Asking for a friend.
I think it depends. He's asking because I do streams on fat chicks, and now I've got the reputation of being a feeder into really super morbidly obese women.
Yeah,
I know who sent that chat. I mean, with the ball inflation, somebody died as a consequence of their cult stuff, and I think he's in drama for it. I think if somebody does, as a result of a fetish, perishes, I think that's manslaughter at the very least. Correct?
I don't know. So manslaughter tends to require some sort of like negligent or reckless disregard. It's state by state, so it's hard to say, right? But it's like some negligent or reckless disregard for human life. So you have to think that the amount of food that you're giving them will actually kill them. So like if they're like laying on a bed, having trouble breathing or whatever, and you're just shoving burgers in their mouth, that's a problem. But if you're one of those fetish feeders or whatever, who just like donate a meal through the internet or whatever, that's harder to know because the person is like eating and presumably like they're consenting to the food being sent and all that stuff. So it gets kind of muddy. I think it could be, but that's going to be a very fact specific problem. And I don't know that the prosecutor is going to have the stomach to. They'll probably just say, "Too bad, fat person ate themselves."
Well, I'm thinking of the case in Germany where they consented to cannibalism.
Yeah, I don't know if consenting to cannibalism works because I think cannibalism is in the U.S. because I think cannibalism is illegal. So you can't.
Okay, that's the caveat. It's literally illegal. Feeding
yeah,
is not
like
literally illegal.
You can't consent to having someone shoot you in the arm, for example. In the U.S., I'm pretty sure
you can't or can.
Cannot. Because to use a firearm in reckless disregard for human life, which a use of a firearm is the use of a deadly weapon, and to use a deadly weapon on a person is to manifest an intent to kill. So even if they consent, like, yeah, no, shoot me in the arm, you still could be, I believe, prosecuted for that. Even with like a signature and stuff, you would have to get like to somehow do that.
Permission.
Yeah, you'd have to have like probably some sort of variance from the local governing body, like the police force or whatever, like doctors present who are licensed. You'd have to get all kinds of real approvals. Like if you were doing it for science or something, you'd have to get actual permission. You couldn't just say like two people shooting. Because I think that one YouTube chick who shot the bullet and the idea was to have the book stop the bullet, and she ended up killing her fiance or whatever because yeah, did you not hear about that?
No.
Okay, so they tested. Yeah, it was early this year, I think, or last year. But they tested it. So they took a bullet or a gun and they shot a book. And the book stopped the bullet. So then they grabbed another book and they're like, "We'll do a cool YouTube stunt where I shoot you and you stop it with the book." But the other book the new book had less like page density or was older or whatever. So the bullet just went right through and just off the guy.
It sucks to be her. She killed her fiance and she's going to jail.
Yeah, it was not good. I think that even happened maybe in Minnesota. But
YouTube is just awful. People do stupid shit when they think they're going to get clicks for it.
I saw a guy jump into like this deadly jumping not deadly, but this like super horrific jumping cactus or whatever. It's called a jumping cactus because the spines are so long that it seems to jump to get people. But yeah, he jumped into it. God, it was funny. It's like trying to be Jackass, but have to be edgier because, you know, Jackass already exists.
Yeah, no, I'll stick to live streaming about crazy people. I'm not gonna shoot myself to get clicks. At that point, you should just get a regular job and be content with your mediocre but long-lasting life.
So, Gojirify says 2 questions in a row. He says, "Stroker, ask Bagel Goose about Stoker." I don't know if it's Stoker or Stroker, but Bagel Goose, I'm supposed to ask you about those. Landoname says, "Gonna be in LA in July. Bring Dick to Anime Expo. Good luck, buddy. Good luck." I hope that works out well for you and Dick at Anime. I don't want to go to an anime convention ever. Bagel Goose says she drops her robe and her skin is taut with the dozens of infant hands and faces pressed against it in perpetual agony, begging to be released from their torment.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, there's something, I don't know how to describe it adequately, but in like horror movies, like it's usually in passages to hell, like you can see like a fire or like a cloth where like hands and faces are pressed. You can only see like the visage of them. It's like that, but with Ruth Bader Ginsberg's abdomen.
That's disgusting.
That's how she stays alive.
Yeah, she opens her robe. She's got like this distended belly hidden under the robe and like screaming faces. Oh God, I'll sleep well tonight. Okay, so So what I was going to do before I knew for sure if you were coming on was I was going to cover some legal news stories that have been happening this week. And one of them I want to talk about because the subject is so fascinating and infuriating to me is a mom. She left her kids in the car while she went into a party and the kids baked to death, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think should happen to people who leave their kids in a hot car or who leave their kids in a car? Like, how do we handle this problem? And the reason I'm asking you is because this is actually asked by the professor in my criminal law class when I was in law school, and the answers astounded me. So what do you think we should do about parents leaving kids in cars where they die? And then the question, I guess the logical question that follows is, how do we then determine, like, at what point if we do anything, at what point do we intervene legally and say there's some level where you can leave your kids in a car up to X, and then from X on it's illegal because it's so dangerous?
It sounds like a very technical kind of question, because you want to say, like, it depends on the heat, it depends on the vehicle, it depends on if it has air conditioning on, it depends on if they leave. Like, if it's like hot outside and they're just going in for like 10 minutes and okay, here's a ridiculous scenario. It's like 90 degrees outside. It's a heat wave in a usually cold area. Right. So It's not like Tucson, Arizona, or Tucson, Arizona, or Tucson. I don't know how to pronounce the name. I got bullied for it last time. Tucson. So you're in Tucson, Arizona, right? You know it's hot. Never leave your kids in the car, because I mean the government there, the judges or the jury there would never, like, if you leave your kid in the car in Tucson, you're full, no matter what time of year it is, no matter what the situation is. Just don't do that, right? But if you're in Minnesota or somewhere where it's very cold or cool usually, and there's a heat spike and it's up to like 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and you leave the AC on and you go inside, and you're only going to be in there for 10 minutes because it's the bank, but then the bank gets robbed and you're a hostage, and your car runs out of gas and the AC cuts off and your kids die. Like, is it your fault then? And
yes.
You would say yes?
Yeah, I would. But that's me. I'm a radical on this topic.
I would say it's a very, very technical situation, because the loss of life is the punishment itself.
Now, see, I disagree. I mean, yes, the loss of life is a punishment. However, the question is, who is the law protecting? And this is what blew me away in law school was, okay, you've got some very specific scenarios, but let's go with the normal one with how this tends to work, right? Dad gets in the car, and this is how it's presented. Dad doesn't normally take the kid to daycare. Okay. Mom is busy this day, so dad has to take the kid to daycare on his way to work. Dad puts the kid in the car, gets like a phone call, and his brain skips remembering that he has to go to daycare. So he just drives to work. Kid falls asleep or whatever. Gets out of his car, goes into his office, doesn't think anything of it. Kid dies. No malicious no like partying, because that's the headline I've got is mom goes into a party and leaves her kids in the car and then they die. She got 40 years in prison or whatever, and she deserved more than that. But like the normal case is someone just forgets, right? They forget they have their kid and they go in. So then what do you do with that person? And the answers in my criminal law class, now mind you, I went to law school later in life and I already had children. Okay. A lot of people I was in the room with didn't have children. And so I don't know if that changes absolutely. It does change the calculus.
It does.
It's going to change how you perceive it. So for me, like, all I can think of is when I've got my kids, I'm constantly concerned about how I'm going to make sure that they don't die while under my care. Like that's a literal thing. Like I have to, I check and make sure that I've got everybody out of the car. I do all this, stuff. And I've got 5 of them running around. But there is like this thing where you got a new parent, their kid's only, 8 months old or whatever, and they go to work. And to me, I still think that's a crime. and they should be punished. And the reason that I would say that is because, one, the law is to protect the life of the child, and I realize that the parent is probably suffering, but that's still a negligent homicide to me. And if a daycare provider did it, the daycare provider would go to prison. Right?
Well, yeah, because the daycare provider has expectations to take care of the kid, obviously.
Yeah, but why? Because of just the parent's right to have the child? I don't think so. I think it's protecting the kid, to me. So that's where the legal theory gets
in a sense. The issue with that is, like, I want to give another technical answer where it's like, well, if the mother says that there was no issue between them and the father absolutely had no incentive to get rid of a kid, then the loss of the child is in itself the punishment. But on the flip side, it's like, what if both parents just went to kill the kid and they had a corroborative alibi, right? Then so it's like, maybe the law isn't there to protect the kid, it's to protect other children, in the same way that we have anti-child pornography laws as an exception to freedom of speech, not because it can't in some bizarre way be construed as art, but because we want to make sure that we want to help protect kids not only in the country but outside the country. So it's like, we're going to punish people for killing their own kids on accident to try and protect other kids from negligence by having that threat over them, and to completely rule out any mutual decision to commit infanticide. So but the thing is like, I don't like very technical laws with many exceptions and considerations. I like Occam's razor laws, where it's like, you kill child, you go prison.
Yeah, and I think that's how it should work in this one. Like, for me, I say, because like I said, my job is to make sure my kid doesn't get hurt by this stuff. Like, that's literally, as a parent, I signed up for that, right? Like, I'm the caretaker of someone who can't caretake themselves. And that's my choice. I could have had an abortion or put them up for adoption or whatever, but instead I choose, no, I'm going to take the responsibility for this kid. So, and the state has an interest in protecting life. So to me, because it's a future taxpayer, so the state's always interested. But to me, like, because of that alone, if I leave a kid in a car and they die, then yeah, I should go to jail. Like, that's how I see it personally. Because if anyone else left my kid in the car and they died, they should go to jail too. And not just because I lose the kid, but because they committed violence, even through negligence, against someone. And that's
I'll give you a situation in which I absolutely, positively, 100% agree that the parent should be in prison. Remember Harambe? That mother should be in jail for killing that gorilla.
Yeah,
that's so sad to me. Like, his name meant family. It means family.
He was just trying to adopt.
He was just taking care of the kid. It fell into this unknown place. Like, hey, let me get you out of the water. You're gonna get hypothermia in the water, little guy. And then he gets shot. It's not fair.
Yeah. You know, no one complains when they shoot like an alligator that eats. I'm just saying.
I do.
You do?
Like that kid that got eaten at Disney World, he deserved it. Get out of the alligator. That's his home. He's hungry. You're just feeding him.
He wasn't. I don't think he was actually in the enclosure. He was just close to it, right?
No, they crossed the line. They said, "Warning, alligators." And they went past it to get to the water. The alligator's like, "Hey there, little guy. You want to come see? I'm the alligator from The Princess and the Frog. Come take a picture with me."
To be fair, though, in Florida, to avoid alligators, you just have to stay out of Florida. Like, that's the only way.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can just buy a gun. You're legally authorized to shoot alligators that are coming at you.
That's true. That's
my solution to everything. Buy a gun.
It is a good solution.
Dogs, buy a gun. You worried about the gators? Buy a gun.
You want a discount on your groceries? Buy a gun. That's not legal advice, though. Gojirify says, your car, your kids, your fault. That's honestly where I come down on the issue. I mean, I had to sit there in law school and listen to a bunch of childless, boring people sit there and recite a bunch of reasons why the kid dying, shouldn't be punished. in any sort of way because it was already punished. And I was like, you know what? I hate all. Very much.
My thing is like, you can't look at it any way you look at it. You're going to come to some weird rationale. It's not going to be directly about the kid's death. I don't think it's going to be about the investment the government has in raising the child. It's going to be about warning other parents to make sure that they don't do the same. It's going to be about making sure that even if there's a conspiracy between the parents to kill the child, they get reprimanded for it. It's going to be about all sorts of things that don't actually involve the justice for the kid. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's that's why it's a tough question. It's because you hit it and it's kind of like a rock in the water. You got to swim around it some way. You got to go over it potentially. And that's why people come up with crazy answers to the question. It's because it's from a legal standpoint, it's very strange trying to figure out who should be punished and if they should be punished, because I mean, you can't. I would argue in many situations they're already being punished.
Yeah, they certainly, most of them probably are, because most people who leave their kids in a car do it by accident. Like, in all honesty, and the punishment that they're going through and knowing that they killed their child is got to be worse than any sort of jail thing. But I don't know. Something in me just wants some measure of justice to step in. And maybe that's illogical or irrational too, and I'm okay with that.
I think to a point it is. I consider justice almost entirely rehabilitative, and my philosophy is, if you can't rehabilitate someone, you got to kill them. There's no reason to have somebody in jail that you cannot rehabilitate and you're going to hold forever. You should kill that person.
So the person, let's take this argument, because this is interesting to me. So the argument is that the person who does leave, the average person who does leave their child in the car and they die because of just like honest negligence, right? Like brain reset, and they're outside of their routine. Like I presented before, dad doesn't normally bring the kid to daycare, gets a phone call and his brain skips a beat and he drives to work and then forgets that his kid's in the car and his kid dies. Okay. So there is no rehabilitating that, because that's not a behavior, right? Like, that's a mistake.
Yes.
So do you shoot that guy then?
Well, that's why I would say you potentially would not punish them at all, because the crime is really unto themselves because they lost the child.
Okay, so you had presented either death or rehab, but it's actually death, rehab, or non-punishment.
Yeah, death. Well, I don't believe in a victimless crime or a self-inflicting crime.
Well, the victim's a dead kid. Like they begged. I thought you hated suffering.
You know what? I would say that you can rehabilitate. You put them. I mean, like 3 years tops is what I would say. You want to make sure that they never fuck up like that again. They get out of jail, they're going to be thinking, "Where's my kid? Where's my kid?" Anytime they're doing anything, like I think you can rehabilitate somebody who makes a mistake is the thing.
Okay, so I can agree with you. So how long should they go to jail for? Because it's not murder, right? Like, they're not trying to kill their kid.
I would say anything over, because you want that person to be able to re-enter society and have more children. And
you want to trust that person with another kid?
I guarantee you, somebody that accidentally kills their kids and is grief-stricken about it will never, ever make that mistake again, ever. They could have 20 kids, and each of them would live their life in bubble wrap, perfectly untouched.
Maybe you take away the car, though, just to be sure. Look, you can have a kid, but no cars, no ovens,
driver's license again.
Not even a toaster oven for you, buddy, just in case you get any weird ideas. I was gonna title my live stream to have dead kids in it, and then my producer said don't do that because YouTube will flag it, and so then I changed it to warm kids.
I was wondering what you meant by that. I'm like, what do you mean by warm kids? Is that like
well, I was
so wrong.
I was gonna put it to hot kids, but then I was afraid that Mark Zaid.
Yeah, don't do that.
I thought Mark Zaid might watch my stream if I titled it "Hot Kids." So no.
He would take a screen cap of that with your face cam on, and he would post it on Twitter. He'd get like 20 trillion upvotes and shit.
Have you ever seen his liked video list?
No.
Oh,
I don't
dude.
know who that is.
Mark Zaid. Okay, so Mark Zaid. You remember the Lockerbie bombing that blew up a plane over Scotland?
No.
Okay, so the Libyan government basically sheltered terrorists who blew up a plane over Scotland back in the 70s.
Who did? The U.S.?
The Libyan government.
Oh, okay.
So it's called the Lockerbie bombing. Big event. Like it's got its own wiki and all that stuff. A bunch of people it was a passenger jet that blew up. So big tragedy, right? 100+ people dead. And then eventually some family, there were like 32 U.S. citizens on board the plane who died, and they, along with some other people, all sued the Libyan government for sheltering the terrorists, and ended up winning. Mark Zaid is a lawyer who helped negotiate the settlement on behalf of the 30 U.S. families. So big superhero lawyer. He also happens to be representing Mark Wade in the lawsuit against Diversity in Comics.
No relation?
So no relation between Mark Zaid and Mark Wade. So of course, Mark Zaid he's like a kind of a big deal, right? Lawyer, because of the whole Lockerbie thing. He sues the government all the time for freedom of information stuff and a lot of stuff like that. And he kind of does he represents a lot of government employees.
Is he our good guy lawyer in this instance?
In the comics case, no. He actually hates me because let's be honest about what he did. So he's representing Mark Wade, and the action was in Texas. And so what he needed to do to represent Mark Wade in Texas is get waived in pro hoc vice, which, if you're not licensed.
I remember this. I saw your argument with him.
Right. So the whole thing,
he was acting like an immature dipshit. It was actually kind of, I'm startled to hear that's the guy that was saying that.
Exactly. So, but what he did, what got lost in that argument, because I wasn't really hammering on it too much, is I have sources on the inside of this lawsuit, and let's just say that the party representing Diversity in Comics, when Mark Zaid hired the local Texas council, he actually hired 2 local Texas council. He hired one in Dallas first, and then one in Austin, and the Dallas firm went away. Each time he hired them, they presented themselves to the Diversity in Comics side as a new attorney to the case, not as local counsel for Mark Zaid. Okay? So they just casually let it slide that he was still representing Mark Wade. Now, the reason I believe that they did this is because they were asking for a multi-week extension on their deadline to answer the initial complaint or to file a motion. And if you've got representation from day one, which Mark Zaid had zealously professed his representation right away of Mark Wade on Twitter and everything else and in interviews, said he was taking the case and he was lead attorney. If you've had representation from day one, asking for an extension suddenly seems a little weird. Now, for whatever reason, they didn't tell the opposing counsel that he was still representing them, and the new counsel said, we're the new attorney representing Mark Wade, and which is highly, highly questionable as a business practice for an attorney. We'll put it that way. To misrepresent who is actually
your relationship with the other attorneys and it's.
And so when I reported on it,
forgiven for mistaking it because they're lying, basically.
Right, very much so. And like I said, the other attorney team, this was confirmed by a video that Diversity in Comics released later on, was that they had no idea that he was still on his counsel. And so, that was the scope of the argument, was that I reported on it thinking that he was out. I had actually asked him about it, and he just never answered because I figured that was because he was out. But turns out they misrepresented. Oh, and normally when you have that, by the way, you would caption the lawyer who's got a pro hoc vice pending. You'd caption them on the documents, and they didn't do that either. Very, very suspicious activity from a veteran attorney. But, what do I know? So anyway, you should look his YouTube up and check out his liked videos. It's kind of funny. That's where my hot kids joke comes from. This is a long explanation of a joke, which probably killed it. Probably killed it harder than that mom killed her kids, which is not a good thing. Good thing.
Harder than Libya dropped that plane.
At least harder than the. No, never mind. Speaking of hard, Landoname asks, what's better, Nick? Lolly porn or kids baking in cars? Lolly porn is better than kids baking in cars because lolly porn is at least not illegal in the United States.
It is a drawing as opposed to the child's dying.
Right. And while if you are pleasuring yourself to lolly porn, maybe you should reconsider your life choices.
Here, before I got on, before I was talking to you, I was on the route for tour.
Yeah.
And I was just going to talk about Jonathan Yaniv, but this weird guy was outright calling me like a pedophile, saying I was talking openly about sex tourism in the Philippines and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay this guy any attention. But he got onto the air and he's talking and he's yelling at me and he's saying, for a brief time, I hosted a website called 16chan, which had the same permissive rules as 8chan.
Sure.
And part of that was permitting a discussion of pedophilia. Text only, that was my rule. That was different from 8chan. 8chan had boards dedicated to pedophilia where they posted pictures of kids, safe for work pictures, but in the context, it's really creepy.
Yeah, that's awful.
So I made a rule on mine saying, if you're going to have a board discussing pedophilia, it has to be text only. You can't have any multimedia content on your board. And I thought that's a fair compromise because you can't commit a crime with text, basically.
Yeah, so it's tough.
It's like that's fair. You can have your freedom of speech and your boards, but you can't have pictures. And in that way, there's no risk. There's no risk to my site. There's no risk to me. There's no risk to you. And he was bringing up like that was me like endorsing it, or that was me like promoting it, and I'm just like, until the day that it's illegal, until the day that thought crime is literally thought crime, I'm not gonna censor people. I can't bring myself to do it, even though I knew when I did it, like that would cause reputational damage to me for tolerating it. And it's like I just can't give enough of a shit to censor stuff.
Yeah, and we need to stop that whole like permissiveness equals endorsement. Like that's the root going, like circling way back. That's the root of the Patreon, MasterCard, Visa issue is these companies are, if we take a charitable look at them, they're afraid that by permitting certain people or forums or whatever to use their service, that they are then going to be perceived as endorsing that position, and therefore it will hurt their brand. So if MasterCard allows Jihad Watch to exist on Patreon, then MasterCard is endorsing an anti-Islamic Israeli, and that makes it bad. Is he Israeli or just Jewish? I don't know. Robert Spencer, not Richard Spencer. But anyway, I don't know anything about him. I don't really care. The only thing I care about is that MasterCard or Patreon admitted that MasterCard said you can't be on Patreon, or that Patreon would suffer the consequences of being defunded. Because MasterCard can't actually not process transactions of an individual, but they can refuse to work with a business that processes a lot of transactions. So if Patreon loses the ability for MasterCard to be processed, they lose a good portion of the customer.
It's so frustrating. And this is why I became like a crazy person. It's like, why can't people just be left alone? Why can't they just do what they want to? And you're forced, when you're like me, when you're like a crazy person like me, and this stuff is happening and you have no explanation for it, you start to think, there has to be a conspiracy. There has to be a group of people with an overarching goal that they are working towards achieving that involves pulling apart the society we live in, pitting people against each other, and ostracizing people who say and do certain things. And the word I use for that, the polite word I use to describe this idea, is called the complot. I believe in the complot, a global organization of people with a conspiracy to hurt the United States at their own gain. And it's because of stuff like this. Because if it didn't exist, there wouldn't be any symptoms of it. It's like with cancer. You get a bloody nose, and like, where did this cancer come from? You go to the doctor, you've got lung cancer, and now you're coughing up blood. That's why. And it's like, if I didn't have a bloody nose, I wouldn't have recognized the cancer, even though it's like deep inside of my body. And that's what the complot is. All this stuff, it's like the bloody nose. We're gonna do chemotherapy soon. We're gonna find the tumor.
Yeah, I think it's starting to come out. There's a guy I want to talk to, and if any of you, I have a connection to him on Twitter. I'm going to send him a message, but his name is Nick Monroe, and he's a freelance journalist who's been doing a lot of work on this MasterCard stuff. But I want to know what he knows and have him kind of lay it all out in a succinct way. So I'm hoping to talk to him about it, because I do think it's going to come to light, because all of our bad stuff comes to light. All of their bad stuff will too eventually. They can't keep every employee happy who leaves the company. That's how leaks occur, right? Like that's how this stuff actually starts to come out, is when someone leaves the company and gets mad and doesn't get Seth rich.
That's what happened with Google. Google was trying to get buddy with China, develop a Chinese search engine, probably trying to trade artificial intelligence technology with Beijing.
Right.
And an engineer finds out, it's like, you guys kept this a secret from me. I probably worked here they probably worked there for 20 years. And you motherfuckers thought you could keep this a secret from me. And that's when that do no evil line was crossed with somebody who actually cared, and they bailed out. And they got Google to shut it down, which is impressive, because that was hundreds of millions of dollars and years of a very, very complicated international negotiation and stuff. And it's just gone. It's just gone. It's beautiful. Yep. That thing was worth more than 10,000 me's, and it's just destroyed. It's beautiful.
And it's good that it's gone.
Thank God. It's perfect. Because now I don't want Google to know what Beijing knows about artificial intelligence, because they're going to use it to censor people. I was thinking about this the other day, that because almost every transaction happens through MasterCard, Visa card, and because things like the three financial credit bureaus exist, you know for a fact that they're able to use machine learning to network purchasing signals and what people are into and what they're investing into. And these companies have everybody by the balls, and nobody thinks about them enough. Nobody thinks about what they're doing and what they can be doing. They have technology scanning every single thing that you spend and learning about you. And they're going to use that. At some point, they're going to use that. It's a thing. It exists. I have no evidence for it, but I'm right.
No, let me add to that. Oh, okay. So part of the reason why your banking transactions are not considered private under Fourth Amendment protections, that you have no right to privacy or reasonable expectation of privacy in your bank account, is because that you share the information of your bank account with your bank, right? And the bank, as a reasonable course of business, has to know and has to keep records of it. So that means that since that's a third party who's privy to the information, the government doesn't need a search warrant to find out your bank transactions. They just go to the bank and they say, we want to know this person's bank transactions. And they hand them over. Absolutely. Same thing.
That's why the government is tolerant of this, because it benefits them so much. They don't have to worry too much about people, the little guy, paying their taxes, their couple $1,000s, because they just scrape it off the 2% of every transaction they've ever made from MasterCard and Visa card from the corporate income tax. And then it benefits them as well, because now they have two places to ask for every transaction you've ever made with their cards.
Yeah. And it was expanded from I don't know if it started just because of the drinking and the long stream. I don't remember which one was first, but if it wasn't banks first, it was pen registers on telephone lines, because the telephone company has a reasonable business expectation to know what number you're dialing and to preserve that information and give it to the government, according to the courts. So MasterCard and Visa absolutely can use machine learning to know your purchasing expenses, your purchasing habits and patterns and stuff like that. And the interesting thing about that is that as that technology develops and they're able to use it for a legitimate business purpose, like pushing ads, for example, knowing your purchasing habits to know, better, fraud prevention, right? This guy doesn't normally buy 50 bondage ball gags. That's a weird thing for him to purchase. That's got to be fraud. So they, of course, need to know what your purchasing habits are to make educated guesses about what is outside of your purchasing habit to protect you and prevent the likelihood that a fraudulent purchase has occurred on your card.
Protection, friend.
Right. And now they have a legitimate business purpose for it. And now you have lost any privacy that you may have had. And you've lost the requirement for the government to have a warrant to search those transactions. And if you don't think there's like an incestuous and symbiotic relationship with all of these companies and government, you're absolutely wrong. They're more than happy, as Null was saying.
Because you know, if it were easy to set up your own competition, and I ran 1776 card or something, and the government asked like, hey, can you pretty please give me the transaction history of this guy? I'd be like, do you have a court order for that? Like,
right.
there's no way in hell you'd get me to voluntarily surrender that kind of information. They don't want competition because they're going to have to deal with assholes like me having power for once, and that's terrifying.
And they could. The scary thing is that based on MasterCard and Visa's usage of machine learning to gather that information, they could force you by court order without a warrant to do it, just like they did to the LavaBit guy, where they forced him to turn over encryption keys to the encrypted email service that he ran.
They forced him without a court order?
No, with a court order. They got a court order.
Well, if you get a court order, I mean,
no, but they did it without a warrant. And they did it on the theory that because LavaBit had, or that people gave their encryption keys to LavaBit, because the judge didn't, obviously this judge didn't understand encryption very well, but because they exchanged the key with LavaBit as part of decrypting their email, that LavaBit should have to turn that over to the government without a warrant. And this was when Snowden was leaking the information. He had a LavaBit email account, and the government wanted to find out who Snowden was emailing in foreign countries. And so they got a court order, and that's why LavaBit was shut down, because he was being fined something like $5,000 a day for contempt of court, because he printed off the encryption key on paper and brought it
on paper.
Yeah.
I remember this. Somebody, my buddy locally told me about this story and how they tried to get him to surrender information and stuff. I remember this.
Yeah, the only saving grace was that LavaBit didn't actually keep archives of the emails that were exchanged. And so the government could only use the encryption keys to get new information that was passing from the email account. So that was his solution, was to shut down the entire service, because once he did that, it became moot. They couldn't get any of the information, like, because he didn't have any of Snowden's existing emails or email contacts or anything like that.
And there's something called right now, there's something called mail in a box. And mail in a box is a very simple script that you can run on Ubuntu to set up your own mail server on your own domain, on your own VPS in minutes and have it work just fine. And open source, like, they're targeting open source software right now. They're trying to implement codes of conduct. They're trying to ruin it, because open source software is the single biggest threat to government control right now. Because as long as any random guy can download premium grade shit off GitHub or wherever and run their own email server and their own encrypted hard drives and stuff, the government will never be able to satisfactorily control what's being said. They'll only be able to do it with normies and normie tech, leaning on stuff like that. They'll never be able to track down the Snowdens.
Right.
So they're trying to screw that up now. But as long as it exists, there will always be an open source, distributed, crowdsourced solution to every problem. And it'll only get better over time, because you'll have people, like, especially from China, like all these new developing countries, all these people getting online right now and learning how to program and wanting to solve issues that they're curious about solving. It's just going to get better. And I think, like, it's going to hit a breaking point. Like, I'm usually very nihilistic, but on the flip side, I think it's getting make or break now. where it's either like the government finds a way, MasterCard, Visa card, find a way to completely stifle innovation and win over the hearts and minds of people to not want freedom of speech, or it falls apart entirely and our government is basically reformed in the next 10 years.
We'll see. We'll see. I hope you're right and that it is reformed. Well, I don't know if you're making that official prediction, but I hope that it is reformed. I hope that the pendulum swings back and we get away from this this reactionary culture, which is interesting because the reactionary culture that we have would purport itself to be a reaction to a reactionary culture. But we've got to stop giving anybody control over someone's life and livelihood. I think that just needs to, the only person who should be involved in a life and livelihood is the person, and then their employer should be involved in their livelihood while they're currently employed, right? Like that's about it. Yeah. I think, and especially people like me, people who get inducted into technology and open source stuff, we become very inundated with an ideal of meritocracy, and that leads to a sort of libertarian or very classic liberal, pragmatic opinion of the world. And it's just going to there's going to be more people like me. I've always said that one of the reasons why I run the forum is I don't think the forum is ever going to in itself change anything, at least for the better. But I think there's enough people there who are very young, not like under 18, but in that 18 to 24 bracket, who are seeing in the forum what I saw in like 4chan with the Wild West kind of internet. And they're all going to grow up and they're all going to want that kind of thing in their present day. It's why so many people are angry. It's because 4chan is whitewashed and everything's whitewashed. You can't say what you want. And it didn't used to be like that. It didn't even used to be like that a long time ago. Like in my life, when I was 12, we could say whatever we wanted and nobody could say otherwise. And people could make money and it was fine. And now it's not like that. And the more, like, that's why everybody my age is angry, because we remember 4chan being good and being free and the internet being crazy and the government being 10 steps behind us. And that's what people want again. And I want to kind of keep that alive. I want people to see, like, especially young people, especially people who come over from Tumblr and stuff, to see call outs and stuff. I want those people to be like, hey, it's a lot more fun when you don't have somebody breathing down your neck. Yeah, the internet's way more fun when you don't have like the threat of either a government or even like a social brigade of your alleged peers persecuting you for wrongthink or for wrong opinions. I mean, I remember arguing vigorously as a teenager on forums and stuff like that, and using all sorts of words that are not allowed now, just because, like, who cares? Like
he. Or him,
right?
Or his.
Very, very dangerous to use those words. Okay, man. Let me burn through these last chats, and then we can probably wrap it up because we've been going a long time. I know you've been awake for a while, and I really appreciate you coming on.
No worries.
Okay, so Where Tiger Ray says, why do parents get off the hook when their child gets a hold of their gun? They say that they've suffered enough, but it's the exact same situation with leaving your child in a car. Your gun, your kid's your fault. I think there is a time that is true, but I think at some point, like, the kid's responsibility in picking up the gun changes, or if the kid, like, is unlocking a safe or something. But if you just got a gun lying around on the floor loaded and your toddler picks it up, yeah, your gun, your kid's your fault. Maddie P on the road says, what if someone crashes into the parked car? What if you are still in the car? Where does the fault change? Patreon.com/Asterios. I mean, if you're still in the car and someone crashes into the car, like, there's nothing that you've done to endanger the child any more than, like, outside of the reasonable scope. I think if you leave the car and your kid is in it and someone crashes the car, like, they're the intervening cause of the damage. And so they would bear the brunt of it, but you might still have questions because you not being there might have caused something more to happen to the child. But that gets really, really technical into liability, and just having a car in a place and having someone hit it, the person who hit it should bear almost the entire responsibility, in my opinion. Tipio Tom says, let's all take a drink for Harambe. I would, but I just finished my drink and I don't want to pour another one. I'll drink some tea for you, buddy. Dick's out for Harambe. Gojirify says the jail time served should be the same years that their child would have been from 18. That's an interesting punishment. That's an interesting one. And then Where Tiger Ray says, I have a view that life in jail can be worse than death. If they can't be rehabilitated, then give them life. It denies them the sweet release of death, and on top of that, it's cheaper.
Well, as I said, I don't value torture in any way. I just think we should kill people that can't be fixed.
Yeah, Null is of the opinion that a utilitarian, very quick and clean death would be the option. Not like a smash their fingertips all the way up to their elbows until they die from pain type of death.
Yeah, if you can't, I mean, yeah, the way I see it is, if you can't fix them, you just got to get rid of them. I guess it is utilitarian, but it makes sense. You can't. I don't know, anybody who thinks like it doesn't even matter how bad the perpetrator is. Like, if you want to see people hurt, like, not really for that.
Right, and it's also against the Constitution.
It is.
We do have a prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. Although, should we make the lawyer argument that it says cruel and unusual punishment? So if it's cruel and usual, it's okay. Like, it should be cruel or unusual punishment?
Maybe, I don't know.
Should we get pedantic on the and?
I think it's just genuinely inclusive of both.
No, we want smashing hands to be okay so long as everyone is smashing hands.
That's awful.
Anyways, well, man, let's wrap it up. Thank you for coming on. I didn't talk about rapey Kevin Spacey. I'm going to change the video description because, like I said, I had kind of a backup plan because I wasn't sure if you were going to be able to pop in. So I'll change the description and we'll do a legal review a different night. Tomorrow will be a Weeb stream, I believe, with Anime Outsiders and Landon Mackinjames. We will be discussing anime, all things anime, hopefully some legal issues related to anime, probably talking about Harmony Gold and Toei Entertainment and how Toei Entertainment is blocking the use of Dragon Ball FighterZ in popular fighting game tournaments. We'll be talking about that. So check out that. I was supposed to have an interview with Mark Kern yesterday, but I boomered my brain through the holidays and completely forgot to remind him. Entirely my fault, but we are in the process of rescheduling for next week, so I will let you know what day that is. Mark Kern is a developer from Diablo 2 and the team lead on Vanilla World of Warcraft. We are not going to be talking about that, though. We're going to be talking about the same stuff that Null and I have been talking about, which is business, law, and really we're going to be talking about Silicon Valley implementing or imposing a set of values upon its consumers as a way to control the populace. So we'll be talking about that. But yes, and hopefully Russell Greer will be covered on Wednesday of next week with Sriracha. Just waiting for confirmation. Holidays have messed up everybody's schedules, so I apologize that we've been a long time without one. But that's that. So Null, is there anything you want to promote or say before we sign off?
Buy crypto.
Buy crypto.
At least learn how to use it. Because if you think, oh, it's so scary and foreign technology, no, it's easy. It's easy. Even a dummy like me can use it. It's easier. It's getting on Coinbase. Coinbase is like the normie option for it. Getting on Coinbase is literally less complicated and easier and faster than PayPal. If you can get on PayPal, you can get on Coinbase and start trading in the one true economic system. Okay.
Sounds good. Gojirify says rapey Spacey was the reason I came, and I think maybe if he rethinks how that comes out, he would want to retract that statement.
I think that's intentional.
But yeah, all right. So guys, you know, if you have the mindset for it, check out the Kiwi Farms for sure. Determine if it's the right thing for you. Make your own decisions on this stuff. Don't let random hags on the internet tell you what is appropriate web content for you.
Really careful.
What was that?
That's sexist language. You better be careful.
No, that's specific language about a random hag.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying all women are hags. Hashtag not all women. Just hashtag just that woman is a hag. Yeah. So yeah, and tomorrow I'll be announcing the specific time. It'll probably be 11 p.m. I just have to confirm with my guests for the anime weeb stream tomorrow. And then, yeah, we're pushing towards 15,000 subscribers. So once we get there, of course, my black friend who gives me permission to be racist or whatever everyone will say about him will be back on the show sometime after that. I'm trying to coordinate with him already because I think it'll be before too long. And finally, last thing, if you have not watched my video on defamation that I put out last night, please give that a watch. It's 7 minutes long. And there will be many, many videos to follow it to further do 5 to 10 minute segments on defamation. And then once we're done with defamation, we'll move on to another area of law, but it'll be a very quick, digestible way to educate on specific areas of law. And it'll start with a broad overview, and we'll do little videos that drill down into the elements so that if there's something specific you want to learn about, it's there. But the best thing you can do for those type of videos, I know a lot of people have asked me for them, and a lot of people who have watched the first one like it and want more, is make sure you share it so that more people see it. Because, you know, I'm going to do them whether or not, but it'd be nice if more people were exposed to it, because I think it will bring a lot of people in. And as more people come in, more of that type of content can be produced and stuff like that. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Null, for joining me as well. And you all have a fantastic evening.
Take it easy.
All right. Thanks, guys.